Good morning and welcome to Oulton Park for rounds 9 and 10 of TCR UK. We've got the small matter of qualifying coming up in just a few minutes here from Oulton Park, and a whole load of excitement going up and down this wall as well, as we have two brand new drivers joining us here for the championship. Now, Oulton Park is a rather special circuit. The weather here is pretty sweltering today, as I'm sure you can imagine. It's quite sweaty where we are, which is always nice for these poor drivers about to get into the cars. But it is a beautiful, beautiful circuit, and one that I know our commentator Andy McEwen holds in a certain high regard. And yesterday I caught up with him and found out exactly why he loves it so much, and here's what he said. So we're here looking over Cascades, which is where you first came and saw your first ever race here at Oulton Park.
Yeah, the tender age of 5 years old, almost exactly in this spot actually, and I remember it well. It was the day I fell in love with the sport, and that's one of the reasons why this place is so special to me. You know, it all began here. I did my first ever circuit commentary in the box over there at Knickerbrook. It's got so many memories for me, and as a local lad, I'm really glad to be here this weekend.
What makes it so magical? What stands out?
It's just so different. You know, we are so used these days to these big Formula One circuits, and they have their own thing going on, but this has a certain charm that places like that lack. You know, there are no acres of tarmac runoff area. They've got brilliant facilities, don't get me wrong, but this just has a bit of character that some circuits lack. The drivers love it, the fans love it as well. For the drivers, it's one of their favourites. They all call it the mini Nürburgring, and you can see why. It's tight, it's narrow, it's undulating, and it's unforgiving. You've got to treat this place with some real respect, because if you go off, you're probably going to damage your car and damage your pride as well. So they really have to be careful. But when they get it right, there's nowhere more satisfying. Yeah,
well, this place wasn't actually built on an old airfield, so it's got its own story behind it as well. They actually looked at the landscape. I know they had to approach the owner of the old manor here years ago to try and get it built, so it's got a different story to how it came about.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the run-up Deers Leap over the start-finish line, that was the driveway to the old hall. The lodge, of course, is still there, that iconic shot that you always get of the cars coming out of Lodge Corner with the big lodge in the background. You know, there are snippets of the history of this place dotted all around. And actually, the basic outline of the circuit hasn't changed that much. They added the far end of the circuit, which we're using this weekend, not that long, actually, after the place opened in the first place. And really, apart from there are a few less trees these days, it really hasn't changed.
So what are the unique corners? What were the biggest struggles that all of our drivers are going to face here?
There is no such thing as an easy corner here, that's the problem, but the corner behind us, Cascades, that's really tricky. Downhill braking zone, it's bumpy as well. You've got the camber going through the corner, but then it falls away on the exit, so it's very easy to run wide, damage your car on the runoff area. Then Island Bend at the end of the Lakeside Straight, one of the few really quick left-hand corners in the UK, and it goes on and on and on. If you run wide, you get a wheel on the grass, that's it, you're off the road. And then, you know, up at Druids, that double apex right-hander under the trees. If there's a bit of rain, a bit of drizzle in the air, that's always the slipperiest part of the circuit. It's a tricky double apex right-hander, and it's quick. And again, no runoff area. So wherever you go around this circuit, there are challenging corners and great views for the spectators. You can see the panoramic view we've got behind us here. Wherever you go here, you're going to enjoy yourself.
Yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it, that once you get into motorsport, you always remember the first race you saw, and Andy can remember. Apparently, his dad was telling me earlier on, his dad's here at Oulton Park. He actually said that as a 5-year-old, Andy was standing there commentating all the racing, and all the fans around were just really getting into it, that Andy was loving it so much, and we can't shut him up. We haven't shut him up ever since, actually. We stand here in the garages looking at the cars as they get ready to go out for qualifying, and a little bit of light work has been done, as we can see, to Lewis's car right now, and that was because in the practice session this morning, Lewis had a slight problem with his car. Now, he's just come into the garage, so I'm going to grab him very quickly. We'll have a quick word. Lewis, let's grab you here quickly. So, bit of work being done to your car. Tell us what's going on and why.
Yeah, we went out for FP1 this morning. We did 7 laps, I think it was. Got down to, well, I was on my in lap for another tyre change, another setup change, to see if we could change anything on the car. Got down to the first hairpin, and I just felt something wrong with the car on the left-hand side. Come through the corner, thought I'll ease off, lean back, made my way all the way around to the last corner. I knew my wheel wasn't right. Got to the last corner, come down the dip, and as I got down at the bottom of the dip, I just felt a crunch, and I just saw sparks in my wheel travelling down the straight. But no, the team were working hard, worked very well on the car, getting it back together, and hopefully we'll be back out for qualifying.
Fair enough. Now, I was told that it might be something to do with the powder coating issue, bizarrely.
Yeah, with the powder coating, it depends on how well it's done. If it's not done right, the powder coating will get very, very hot and then soften up. So obviously, even though you can drill the nuts on it as much as you want, then it will still get soft and make the nuts being able to loosen off and come off. So obviously that could have made the wheel loose and then just rattle about and snap the wheel nuts off. But No, it could be that. It could be anything. We did a pit stop before that and changed the wheels. It depends on what they're saying and what could have happened. There's a million things that could have happened to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Luckily, all that's happened is that your team work on it. And it looks like it's going to be ready for qualifying. At least we hope so.
Yeah, it should be. It should be. We're working hard on it, and I've got a great team behind me. But hopefully they'll be able to put it back together. I'll be out for qualifying.
And with regards to qualifying pace and race pace, I know you had a bit of an unofficial test here yesterday, as many of the drivers did. How did you find your time out here?
Yeah, it's my first ever time at the track, so I'm not too sure what the track's like. Yesterday was the first time. I found a second this morning from my yesterday's time. So if we can do that again in qualifying, we'll be top 5, top 6-ish. So if I can get up to there, I know I'm better in racing than I am at qualifying. So if I'm top 5 or top 6, I'll be happy and I can push my way through for the race, hopefully.
Great stuff, Will. Keep an eye on it. Good luck. Thanks there to Lewis. So as we head a little bit further down, a few stories developing actually on the grid. So as we wander this way, can't see the car just yet, but Tim Docker is a new addition to the lineup, to the grid. We've got Tim Docker joining in a Golf. Now, this is the Golf he used in Britcar, so he's driven it even. It's easier to drive than ride these things. He's driven this car only a couple of times, a couple of race meetings. Before that, he was in the VW Cup before that. So it's the first time really he's raced this car, because he was in the Scirocco in the VW Cup, but he's been racing the Golf a couple of times. He's moved to this series, and so he says, by his own admission, relatively new to it. He was struggling to find pace yesterday, but that is to be expected when you're getting a brand new car or a car that you've hardly ever driven. And talking about drivers getting in a brand new car they've hardly ever driven, if we wander this way, really making the poor camera guy James work here. So if we head this way, we have one other driver who's new on the grid. We're getting a lot of brand new drivers here in TCR, which is fantastic. New additions to it. If you just glance to your right-hand side there now, you see Jen shaking hands with Ash Sutton. So a touring car champion, a reigning touring car champion, has made his way over to TCR UK to give it a whirl. He is in Finley Crocker's Honda Civic. See Josh Files here as well, giving him a bit of help. But Ollie Taylor is, as always, looking very, very fast. Ash Sutton, who wasn't actually supposed to be here until today, he arrived yesterday evening. He'd been working with the Clio Cup, where he does mentoring and training in the Clio Cup. He was at Silverstone yesterday. He finished a little bit earlier and made his way to Oulton Park, where he stepped into that car pretty much immediately, got into his race gear, got in the car and put in a fastest lap when it came to that unofficial practice. So it's pretty amazing to think that straight away Ash Sutton has found that car and it's working for him, and we know he's got amazing pace. It's the first time in a long time that he's been here at Oulton Park and raced on the international circuit as well. He's done the island many, many times, but when it comes to the international circuit, it was new, but he's found it immediately, and he's looking very, very quick. So when we look at the other drivers up and down the grid, particularly people like Dan Lloyd, who we know is always very fast, and we expect to be leading the way as we wander this way and try not to get run over. Yeah, Dan Lloyd, who we normally expect to be right at the sharp end, has now got his work cut out with both Ash Sutton and with Ollie Taylor, who was actually telling me as well, it's great because they do share a lot of data between these two, the Pyro Motorsport drivers, and so they're sharing a lot of information, and I expect to see both of these very much at the sharp end. We heard from Lewis, didn't we, just a few moments ago, and he said that he's not too sure about his qualifying pace, but race pace is certainly very strong. And as we head a little bit further back here, we can see Stuart Lyons in the distance in the Cupra, and he's another driver that really does lack qualifying pace, but when it comes to race pace, he's pretty confident. And he actually said to me before we started rolling today that he thinks when it comes to race pace, he's going to be right up there. So very, very confident. We know that Carl Swift is very fast as well. Carl Swift got his first ever podium in TCR UK last time out. And so he's also riding the crest of a wave. In the distance, you have the three Golfs, Dan Lloyd and the two Backmans. And then a bit further back as well, it's great to see this. We have got some Alfa Romeos. We have two Alfa Romeos here, and as we avoid getting run over, you can see the Alphas coming out in just a few moments. So this is Derek Palmer and Rob Gilmore. Now, we saw Rob Gilmore twice, really, but he's not started any race. 4 races he's attempted to start, not started a single one, and hopefully we'll see him out here today. They've actually had to do a bit of a brake change. So they've had to put new brake discs on that car because he was finding it very hard to stop. So they've done that. So we're going to see Rob go out. He'll run a couple of laps on those brakes, come back in, they'll change tyres around, and then he'll be back out for a flyer. So as the cars now leave and make their way onto the track, it's time to start the qualifying session and hand over to our commentator, Andy McEwen. few difficulties with Andy's mic at the moment. We should be hearing him, but we're not, so we're trying to get Andy to you very, very quickly. But as we look around here at the minute, all the teams, all the drivers, all the teams currently just waiting for their drivers to come back in. They'll be doing a tyre change pretty early on. They'll go around, get some heat in the tyres. Because they're all front-wheel drives, of course, they'll be changing the rears to the fronts pretty quickly, actually. And we've got one car coming in straight away. And here comes Stuart Lyons immediately into the pits. Like I say, this could just be a pretty standard change, actually. This could be just rears to the fronts because of getting the heat in those tyres. Now, we have another car coming in right now, and that is Carl Swift, probably doing exactly the same process. We're going to see a lot of action as the cars do come in for the first few minutes here, because when it comes to the qualifying, it is a case of doing fronts to backs, and that's pretty much what every single one is going to be doing right now. They're moving those rear tyres to the front just to get extra grip. Fresh rubber going on here onto Carl's tyre, onto Carl's car.
Hello, Bryn. I'm hoping you can hear me now. And in the pit lane. Apologies for that, ladies and gentlemen. I believe that you weren't hearing my thoughts on the start of this qualifying session initially, but I think we've got everything sorted out now, so apologies for that. This is the first qualifying session that we've streamed all year so far on TCR UK. It's great to be here and be able to take advantage of this slightly different format this weekend here at Oulton Park, where everything's sort of condensed into one day. So qualifying and practice in the morning and 2 races in the afternoon. So we have had a free practice session already this morning. Ashley Sutton was fastest in that free practice session by just over half a second ahead of this man, Ollie Taylor, who was second quickest. Ollie, of course, who got that first race win of the season at Castle Combe last time out. Dan Lloyd, runaway championship leader, only 3rd quickest in practice this morning. So things are starting to change around slightly now in TCR UK. A slight changing of the guard, perhaps, at the front of the field. Dan has been struggling slightly for pace this weekend because, remember, he is carrying that 60 kilos of success ballast or compensation weight, as it's known in TCR racing, because, of course, he was winning every race that was going in the early part of the season. So he's been handed this 60 kilo compensation weight, which he was carrying at Castle Combe. Ollie Taylor was then able to take advantage of that and win a race. That, though, proved that the FK7 shaped Civic was equally capable of winning races. So he too has been handed now 20 kilos of compensation weight. So there's a 40 kilo difference between the Civic and the Golf, with the Civic still being the lighter of the two. And that is making things very interesting here at Oulton Park. Oulton Park is by far and away the hardest circuit on the calendar to carry the ballast out, because as you can see, it's so undulating. We've got all of these, the rise and fall, and a lot of the acceleration points from the really slow corners, such as this section of the circuit that Ollie Taylor is negotiating now, out of Knickerbrook Corner. You'll see we go out of this tight right-hander and then accelerate steeply uphill. And if you're carrying 60 kilos of compensation weight in the car, that makes a big, big difference. So we are not expecting a Dan Lloyd runaway this weekend. The field is a lot tighter than it has been so far. But of course, this is the first time all weekend long that the drivers will have gone out there on fresh front tyres. They'll be going as quickly as they possibly can. To give you an idea of the reference point for lap times, the fastest time from practice this morning was a 1:42.8 by Ashley Sutton. So Ashley Sutton, a 1:42.8. At the moment, we've not yet seen those representative lap times because they're doing, as Bryn was just talking us through, they're doing their tyre rotation at the moment. So they go out there, they bed the tyres in. They often go out with the front tyres on the rear of the car, the rear tyres on the front, because of course a front-wheel drive touring car warms up its front tyres significantly quicker than it warms up its rear tyres, and you need that front-end grip. So they warm up the front tyres, they swap them over, and then you've got equal grip across both ends of the car. So that's what they're doing now. The early times that are being set, only Ash Sutton and Ollie Taylor have actually set a time, and both of those times were quite a bit slower than we'd expect them to be later on. There is one of our 2 new drivers in the championship this weekend, Tim Docker, former VW Cup racer, and he recently acquired this TCR VW Golf and has been slowly but surely getting the Golf GTI up to speed, and it's great to have him here. Another new name in the TCR UK paddock. Carl Swift is a name that we're very familiar with, and one of the things that you may not have known about that happened after Castle Combe, if you cast your minds back 3 weeks to our previous rounds, Carl Swift finished on the podium in race number 2, but had a time penalty for exceeding the track limits. Now that time penalty was then rescinded and he was put back onto the podium. So Carl got his first ever podium of the season. We thought he was going to get it at Brands Hatch, had that tragic car issue towards the end of that second race, ended up pulling off into retirement, and it was great that he was finally able to get that first podium at the reverse grid race at Castle Combe. Last time out, he's all out of shape through Truids though. That's that tricky double apex left-hander that I was talking about earlier on, where you have to send the car in as quickly as you can, but if you haven't quite got the rear tyres with the temperature, it can very easily catch you out. Then they're on the brakes down in towards Lodge Corner. This is the final corner on the track. Now let's see if Carl is about to go onto a flying lap. He's certainly pushing hard. I think this is going to be our first proper flying lap of the session beginning, and he's got his Maximum Motorsport teammate Stuart Lyons in behind him. Now Stuart Lyons has just completed the flying lap. It was 1:44.7, so Stuart has just gone fastest in the session, but to give you an idea, that is his fastest lap of the day so far. Here's a replay of Carl Swift. That's definitely exceeding the track limits coming out of Lodge Corner. Needs to be careful about that, because if you do that in a qualifying session, you will have that lap time disallowed, so he needs to be careful not to do that when he actually gets onto a real flyer. Ashley Sutton then, reigning British Touring Car Champion, the 2015 Renault Clio champion, of course. He may have won his BTCC title in a rear-wheel drive car, but he has had championship-winning pedigree in front-wheel drive cars before. There is our championship leader, Dan Lloyd. The story to tell for Dan, as far as Castle Combe was concerned, that race 1 penalty, which saw him demoted from first to second after last lap contact with Ollie Taylor, meant that he won on the road. He was then dropped back down into second place and also given a 15-point championship points penalty. So actually, the gap between he and Ollie Taylor has come down considerably. It's still a fairly sizable gap, but that's sort of that's lit the fire underneath Ollie Taylor, I think, and he's realised that actually he can beat Dan Lloyd on the track. He can take the fight to him, and who knows, with still 6 races to go in the TCR UK Championship. And remember, we score points in qualifying as well. There are 91 points available at each meeting of the year. 3 of those meetings left. There are ample points left on the table for Ollie Taylor to really take the fight to Ashton this year. There's Andreas Beckman working his way through. He won the simulator challenge here at Oulton Park yesterday evening. That was something that most of the drivers took part in. There was a simulator provided by AIM Technologies in one of the pit garages. They all had a go, and Andreas Beckman set the fastest time of the evening. And as a result, he's going to have a pretty nifty prize handed his way a bit later on, which we'll cover later on in the day. But yeah, Andreas Beckman, considering it's the first time he's ever driven here, is clearly getting to grips with the place fairly quickly. Looks like he's about to go onto a flying lap down towards Lodge Corner, but you can see that this bedding in of the tyres takes some time. I mean, we're nearly a third of the way through the session now, and we haven't really had a representative lap time in yet. So Andreas Beckman goes onto a lap now. It'll be interesting to follow him round then as he heads down towards Old Hall Corner. We'll start to see now whether he's got the rear tyre temperature up. It looks like he has. The car's a little bit twitchy, but we've had a lap time disallowed for somebody I'm seeing on the timing screen as well. So track limits already becoming a slight issue. Andreas Beckman then through Cascades, off down the lakeside straight, and you can see the spectacular view of the lake in the background there. This is a really unique circuit, lots of greenery and lots of spectacular sights all around the circuit. Really is a fan and driver favourite. There's Ash Sutton, looks like he's also now on a flying lap, so we should start to see some representative lap times coming in shortly. Ash Sutton, we believe, set that lap time this morning in free practice on new-ish front tyres. You'd imagine he's out on a set of stickers now in this early stage of qualifying as he works his way down out of the Shell hairpin in towards the British chicane. Look at the way they monster the curbs through there. Great shot. Oh, a little bit wide over the grass. That's just on the limits of exceeding the track limits. So as Ashley Sutton makes his way over the clay hill underneath the Oulton Park Bridge, I believe we can head down to the pit lane with Bryn.
Yeah, thanks very much, Andy. I have news, and I have news and I have no news at the same time. Basically, the Alphas have both come past us, and I've gone and spoken to the team, and they say the cars are working absolutely beautifully. There's no problems whatsoever to report. So it looks like, for the first time that we've seen this season, both of the Alphas are running as they should. So hopefully we'll see them start to climb the order as the qualifying session continues and progresses.
Yeah, thank you, Bryn. So Ashley Sutton then, as we were talking, has just set the fastest lap of the session, 1 minute 42.348. He's nearly a second and a half quicker than Andreas Beckman, who crossed the line just before him. But we are now starting to see some lap times come in. Ollie Taylor has gone third quickest, Jessica Beckman fourth, and Lewis Kent in fifth. But that is 42.3 for Ash Sutton. That is half a second quicker than he went in practice this morning. So Ash Sutton is really now starting to pick up the pace, and that is a really impressive lap time. His first sector on the next lap is not quite as quick as it has been. However, Andreas Beckman, Jessica Beckman and Ollie Taylor have all, well, in fact, Andreas and Ollie in particular, both doing personal best first sectors on their next laps. They could be about to improve. Now, Dan Lloyd is sat down in the pit lane. He hasn't yet set a lap time in this session. I wouldn't be overly concerned about this because he did this at Castle Combe, because remember, the second fastest lap times from this qualifying session will set the grid for race number 2. However, it's not quite that straightforward. We take the second fastest lap time and then we reverse them. And so, in theory, if you set one really fast lap time and then one not so fast lap time, you can get yourself a good grid position for both. That's what Dan tried to do at Castle Combe, and it really worked for him. He got himself a front row starting position for both races. So that may well be the tactic we're seeing Dan employ here at Oulton Park as well. There's Derek Palmer in the Alfa Romeo Giulietta. We haven't really been able to see all that much of these two cars lately. Bryn documented their various mechanical woes that they've had this season, but Derek Palmer and this man, Rob Gilmore, both very quick when the car is working. We've never doubted that. They just can't seem to get the car to work for all that long, but fingers crossed this weekend they've been showing some real flashes of pace. That was a big lock-up there, though, for Rob. And so this lap time not going particularly to plan. At the moment, Rob is 8th quickest, Derek is 6th quickest, and they're only separated by 3/10 from each other. So the Alphas run by DPE Motorsport, Derek Palmer Seniors team, and they are both looking pretty rapid out there. However, I'm seeing a message on my timing screen that says, oh, that's another big lock up. Rob Gilmore always is spectacular when he's out on the circuit. We noticed that back at Brands Hatch. Yes, the message I'm seeing on my timing screen is that Derek Palmer Senior, the team manager of DPE Motorsports, is being summoned to see the headmaster. The race control wants to have a word with him, and what that might be about, I'm not too sure. It could be that his drivers are exceeding the track limits once too often, and they will get a bit of a slap on the wrist for doing that. And as I said, lap times will be disallowed from the session. So currently, Ashley Sutton is fastest, Andreas Beckman is second, Ollie Taylor is third, Jessica Beckman is fourth, and Lewis Kent in the Hyundai i30 is fifth quickest. Derek Palmer is sixth, Stuart Lyne seventh, Rob Gilmore, the man on the screens, is eighth quickest, Carl Swift is ninth, and Tim Docker rounds out the 10 drivers who have set a time so far. Car number 95, Stuart Lyne's now having a lap time disallowed, however. Doesn't affect his position though, I don't think, as we now get this brief lull in the middle of the session as everybody comes in, goes on to a new set of tyres. So they'll use one set of tyres for their first run, and now they'll get a second run at it on a slightly fresher set of tyres. There, though, is Dan Lloyd. Well, there is Andreas Beckman, but the car in front of him is his teammate Dan Lloyd. So Dan has now gone out there, ready to set a time. There he's coming back to the pit lane by the looks of it. So Andreas Beckman will go on to a flying lap. Dan Lloyd comes into the pit lane, and Andreas crosses the line. That wasn't a bad lap, a 1:44.0. It's not quite an improvement, but his middle sector was a personal best. So Andreas looks like he's on it at the moment. Out of Old Hall Corner he goes, down the avenue, through this tricky right-hand kink at Denton's, which really unsettles the car under braking down in towards Cascades, which is where they are now, through this heavily cambered left-hander. Careful not to run out onto the grass, though. That's what Lewis Kent did yesterday in one of the test sessions and damaged the front of his car quite heavily. Andreas, though, has no such issues. What's his first sector like? It's not exactly setting the world alight, and he's got Ollie Taylor on an outlap on cold tyres right in front of him. I'm sure Ollie will see him coming, though, and try his best to stay out of the way. Yes, he is. So Ollie moves over to the right-hand side of the road. But Andreas Beckman is, so far, not on a personal best lap. We'll wait to see what middle sector's like. That's sometime over the top of Hill Top, which is where they're heading now. Andreas has just had a lap time disallowed, however, for exceeding track limits at turn 1, Old Hall Corner. There are pressure pads on the exit of some of the corners at this circuit. If you run out over them, it triggers a camera, it takes a picture of you, so that when you go to the clerk of course and try and claim your innocence, there's no real way of fighting against the track limits rule, because there's visual evidence there to show that you did indeed exceed the track limits and your lap time should be disallowed. So Andreas has just had a lap time disallowed. This particular lap has not been going particularly well, it must be said. No real improvement. But I'm noticing that with the exception of Ash Sutton, the lap times are extremely close. From second place Andreas Beckman, all the way down to 8th place Rob Gilmore. Only 1 second covers the bulk of the field. So, and Ash Sutton is absolutely showing everyone else how it's done at the moment, but everybody else behind very close together indeed, which bodes well for the racing later on. Now, Dan Lloyd has recently been back into the pit lane again, presumably to swap the tyres over. But he's only leaving himself 13 minutes to get out there and put in a really quick lap time. But I do suspect that he might be trying to do this one quick lap and then one not so quick lap, and he'll then be trying to get the pole position possibly for both races. Well, Dan, we can see out on the circuit, down in the pit lane with some news on the man himself, I believe, is Brim.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. I was just talking to the team about Dan Lloyd, actually, about what's going on with his car. If we have a look at the timing, he's currently way back there in 11th place, and he's put in a really poor 3:07. He's only run 5 laps so far. So I was talking to the team, and they've had to change the brakes. So what happened was they were having a problem with vibration through the front brakes there, and it seems they've got slightly warped discs or something going on. So they've replaced the brake discs again, and they're hoping that this will alleviate the problem there. So that's why Dan is so far down. They've adjusted the brakes, they've changed them over, so fingers crossed that he'll be out there putting in a flyer.
Right, thanks for that, Bryn. That's interesting because here I am saying that this was all a tactic and it was all part of the plan, and it does seem like the plan for Dan Lloyd is rather unravelling this weekend. He's not got the ultimate pace, and his brake issues that have basically cost him the first 2/3 of this session. So I think we're about to see him go on to his first flying lap of the session. It will be really interesting to watch the sector times as we go through. Most of the other cars are in the pit lane, so let's see if we can stick with Dan as he now starts to build the speed up. The championship leader on 342 points. That is 78 points clear of Ollie Taylor at the moment in the championship. But as I said, with 91 points available each weekend, and importantly, 11 points available for qualifying on pole position. So whoever's quickest at the end of this session takes 11 championship points. That could be really valuable for either Dan or Ollie or Andreas, any of the top drivers in the championship. It could really help their championship fight. Change towards the top of the timing screen to let you know about, by the way. Ollie Taylor, as I was speaking about him, has just gone second fastest. So Ollie Taylor leaps himself ahead of the Beckmans and gets himself onto the front row. So it's a Pyro Motorsport 1-2 at the moment. There's Jessica Beckman, currently qualified 4th in this one. That lap time for Ollie Taylor, 2 personal best sectors and then an outright fastest 3rd sector. And here arrives Dan Lloyd on the scene. So his first sector is a personal best, of course. Mind you, so too is Ollie Taylor. So Ollie Taylor could be on for an even quicker lap here. It's a job to know where to look. Dan Lloyd's been well and truly balked by the back markers, but drivers on in and out laps there. So this lap time's gone. So I wonder where Ollie Taylor is. He's somewhere in the middle sector, and he's done a personal best first sector on the lap. And he only needs to, find 0.8 of a second. Here he comes at the back of the shot now. So the red and yellow car, Ollie Taylor, second in the championship, trying desperately to close in on this man, Dan Lloyd, the championship leader, and those 11 championship points for pole position would go a long way towards closing that gap. Let's just hope he doesn't catch this group of slow cars though before the end of the lap comes. So Dan Lloyd heading up towards Druids, but this lap pretty much scuppered now, you'd have to say, by the traffic that he encountered. So it will be his next lap that's likely to be his first significant attempt at pole position. Where is Ollie Taylor though? He hasn't yet caught this group of cars. His middle sector isn't brilliant though, so it may be a small improvement for Ollie. I don't think it's going to be enough for pole position. So Dan Lloyd out of the final turn, Lodge corner, comes across the start-finish line. Let's try this again. That lap time, unsurprisingly, is still the slowest in the session. This time around, with clear track, he'll be looking to try and go as quickly as possible. So out of Old Hall corner he goes, down towards Cascades. Clear track in front of him this time around. And Dan Lloyd, we know is quick. The car just a little bit twitchy there as it turned into Cascades. And that's going to be a result, I'm sure, of the 60 kilos of compensation weight in the car. Ollie Taylor, by the way, aborted that lap. He's coming into the pit lane. So the top 3 drivers in the session all in the pit lane. So the one to really watch here is Dan Lloyd. Stuart Lyons and Rob Gilmore also doing personal best first sectors. Dan's first sector, interestingly, is not quite as quick as he went last time around, but of course at this part of the circuit in sector 2 he then got caught up in amongst some of the cars still trying to warm their tyres up. Very aggressive over the curbs there through the chicane for Dan, right out to the edge of the road but not beyond it. That was nicely done. The car really working well through that sequence of corners. So he now drops down the hill in towards the Hislop chicane. Car skittering around, hammers the curb, a bit too much though, a bit too aggressive over the curb. That'll cost him maybe a 10th or so. We are starting to see the timing screen light up with personal best sectors, and that is iffy as well, I think, as far as track limits are concerned for Dan, as he just ran out over the edge of the curve at Knickerbrook. What's his middle sector? It's a personal best, unsurprisingly, but also setting personal best sectors are Lewis Kent, Derek Palmer, Stuart Lyons, Rob Gilmore, so we're going to see a real shuffle in the order, I think, in the next minute or so. Dan will be the first of those drivers, I believe, to complete a lap, though, so down in towards Lodge Corner he goes. The championship leader in TCR UK, languishing down at the back of the grid at the moment, but this lap time is almost certainly going to send him up the order. How high up the order is the question, though. Across the start-finish line he goes, and Dan Lloyd goes third quickest, and only 5/100ths of a second slower than Ollie Taylor. So Dan Lloyd, that is a lot more like it, goes on to the inside of row number 2. Stuart Lyons has got 6th, by the way, with his personal best lap time of the session. Derek Palmer has done 2 personal best sectors as well, so the Alfa Romeo could be about to leap up from 8th on the grid. There's Ollie Taylor getting ready to go out there and put in another few laps in the closing 7 minutes or so of the session, but he's going to have to go some, I think, to beat the time set by his teammate Ashley Sutton. Here's Derek Palmer. Now, Derek Palmer is currently 8th quickest in number 61 Alfa Romeo. This lap time puts him 5th, so much improved there for Derek Palmer. Good to see the Alfa Romeos, touch wood, running really well in this session. Derek, as I said, goes 5th. Rob Gilmore down in 9th at the moment, but at least the car is running and they're getting much needed laps under their belt. So confirmation of the order as it is now then. Ashley Sutton quickest by nearly 8/10ths over Ollie Taylor, but then it's very, very tight. Ollie is only 5/100ths quicker than Dan Lloyd, who is 3rd. Andreas Beckman is 4th. Derek Palmer, who we've just seen jump up into 5th position, and Jessica Beckman in 6th place. And in fact, both of those 2 drivers on personal best first sector, so Derek Palmer going quicker again this time around. He's only 66/1000ths of a second away from a second row starting position, and that would be a real boost in morale for the DPE Motorsport team. If you can get this car onto the second row of the grid, there is some real potential there. So Derek Palmer on a real flyer. He's the fastest car out there at the moment on the track, and could he be about to leap up onto the second row of the grid? Lewis Kent has had a lap time disallowed for exceeding track limits at Oulton Park Corner. Jessica Beckman, who we're following on the screen now, did a personal best in the first sector. Middle sector wasn't brilliant, but let's see what she can do at the end of the lap. Jessica Beckman crosses the start-finish line and will stay in 7th place, so no improvement. What of Derek Palmer? His middle sector was not an improvement either. Andreas Beckman, though, who's not far behind him on the road, has done a personal best first sector as well, so we could yet see some improvements, but are the tyres now just starting to go past their best? Derek Palmer down in towards the final corner at Lodge Corner. The toe loops there, just flapping in the wind. Fabric toe loops on the front and rear of the car, nothing to worry about there. He crosses the line, and Derek Palmer, it's not quite enough to improve in the end, so he stays in 5th position. Stuart Lyons, Jessica Beckman, Andreas Beckman, all on personal best first sectors. Lots of drivers seem to be finding time in the first sector. It's more the second and third sectors where they're struggling, because of course by the time you get there, you've had the best of your tyres. But Andreas Beckman's done a green first and second sector, so Andreas Beckman in car number 19 will be one of the next cars across the line, I'd imagine, and he could be about to move ahead of his teammate Dan Lloyd, would you believe? He's only 6/10ths behind Dan at the moment. What sort of lap time can Andreas do? We're seeing Ash Sutton there down in the pit lane, taking it nice and easy, just waiting and biding his time before he heads back out on the circuit. Looking towards the timing screen, but we'll catch up on Andreas in a moment or two. First of all, let's head down to the pits with Bryn.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. If you look over there, you can currently see Josh in deep chats. That's Josh Files. He's advising the team, really, at Pyro Motorsport about what they can do. And if you look at the lap times that Ash Sutton's put in, he's actually only run 6 laps here. He's got the fastest lap at the moment, or he did last time I had a look, and they're discussing whether or not they actually need to go out and do any more laps, because, of course, qualifying for race 2 is done by the second fastest lap time. So it might be that they stick with where they're currently at. Ash is still sitting in the car, waiting for instruction, but they're in deep conversation about what they're going to do. I would suspect that Ash is going to stay exactly where he is. He won't put in any other laps, and he's going to try and get some poor second fastest lap time to enable him to be high up the grid for race number 2.
Although Ollie Taylor has just done a personal best middle sector, although he's 8/10ths behind at the moment. Andreas Beckman's lap time that we were following, by the way, it was an improvement. He was 6/10ths slower than Dan Lloyd. He's now 6/100ths slower than Dan Lloyd, but his next lap isn't all that brilliant. Here's Ollie Taylor then, personal best in the middle sector. If anything else, he just wants to really make this second place on the grid a bit more secure. Up across the timing line he's about to come, and Ollie Taylor crosses the line and improves fractionally. So instead of being 4 100ths ahead of Dan Lloyd, he's now 5 100ths ahead, but stays second. So still a Pyro Motorsport 1-2, and then we've got a West Coast Racing 3-4 with Dan Lloyd ahead of Andreas Beckman. Derek Palmer for DPE Motorsport is 5th, and the Maximum Motorsport Cupra on Stuart Lyons is 6th. Ollie Taylor's on the grass there, coming out of Cascades. That nearly went wrong. Jessica Beckman there is 7th quickest. Lewis Kent, is 8th. Rob Gilmore is 9th. Carl Swift is 10th. And Tim Docker rounding out the runners in 11th place at the moment. So the times, though, incredibly tight. If you take Tim Docker out of the equation at the back end of the grid, the biggest gap between any two cars is 7/10ths, and that's between Sutton and Taylor. Here's a replay of Ollie. That's what I spoke about to Bryn before the qualifying session got underway. The camber just drops away as you come out of Cascades, and the car just wants to understeer out to the edge of the road, and he's lucky there not to do any damage. There's the Hyundai i30 of Lewis Kent, 8th quickest at the moment in this session, but to put that into context, he's only actually, let's have a look, a 44.4. If he could find 0.2 of a second, he'd be 3rd. It's really, really tight in the midfield, so he doesn't need to find all that much. But of course, it's easier said than done to find those fractions of a second. Ashley Sutton's still in the pit lanes, not feeling the pressure for the time being. Dan Lloyd, though, I can tell you, has just done a personal best in the first sector. So Dan Lloyd, the only driver out there at the moment, really looking to improve at this stage, and he is starting to go a little bit quicker. And the middle sector's a personal best as well. So Ollie Taylor's second place on the grid might not be secure. Ashley Sutton's pole position might not be secure, and that's why he's heading back out onto the circuit. Oh no, Dan's been off though. Dan's been off wide at Druids, and that surely has scuppered this lap. He'll have dirt on his tyres now, arriving down at Lodge Corner, and you can see that telling there. The car gets sideways as he pitched it in, and I'm fairly sure his chances of making a significant improvement have gone by the wayside. We'll follow him across the line anyway. The lap time is good enough for second place, so it's still an improved lap time. There may be a question over track limits there. He's got time for one more lap though as Dan Lloyd, and he's just gone second. Here's a replay, again just understeers wide over the curb. I'm fairly confident that's going to be looked at after the session. We'll keep our eyes towards the timing screen to see if we get any notification of lap times being disallowed, but Dan has one more lap in the bank. Right, Bryn, what have you got for us down in the pit lane?
Yeah, just a bit about Ash Sutton for you. So they have sent Ash out, as we can see, and the reason is they're trying to really cleverly work the system for race number 2. They looked at the times, and they're trying to work out where he needs to be for the second of his lap times, his second fastest qualifying lap time, and they've sent him out again, and they're really trying to work the system and trying to be a bit clever. At the moment, it's a real guessing game, though. No one's quite sure whether he should have gone or whether he should have stayed. Josh Files is certainly adamant he should have gone, and that is what has happened, so we'll see what happens over the next, minute or so.
Yeah, this is all about that second fastest time, because if you set 2 really quick times, yeah, you're at the front of the grid for one race, but then you're at the back of the grid for race 2, because we flipped the second fastest times, the top 10 anyway, to get the grid for race 2. So if you do one really quick one, good enough for pole, which Ash has done so far, and then a second lap that's good enough for sort of 8th or 9th or 10th, you'll be towards the front of the grid for race 2, and it's a balancing act to try and get that right. That's why they've made regulations that way, though, so that it is hard to play the system. But Ash is going back out there now, and let's see what sort of a lap time he puts on. Headlights are on, though, so he's on a bit of a flyer as he crosses the start-finish line. Nobody else is really improving, and Ash, I think, just about got there before the time ran out, so he timed that to perfection. Checkered flag is now out, but anybody who is currently on a lap is allowed to finish the lap, and it will therefore count towards the end of the session, but no one else is really putting in personal best lap times. Ash looks to be really backing it off, actually, so I wonder whether maybe is this part of the tactic, or is it that he actually didn't quite get to the line in time? Not too sure, but either way, Ash appears to have backed off, and I think we at least have our grid for race 1 set with Ashley Sutton in his debut in TCR UK, setting the fastest time by just under 0.6 of a second provisionally from Daniel Lloyd and Ollie Taylor 2nd and 3rd, but it doesn't look as though Ash is particularly on a quick lap this time around. Half of the grid are in the pit lane, and the other half just sort of casually bringing the cars back around, but Ashley Sutton looks to have done enough for pole position for race 1, and we'll await for confirmation, and hopefully we'll be able to give you confirmation of the grid for race 2 a little bit later on. But Ash Sutton playing the system, has he played it right? That will be the question. So Sutton from Lloyd, from Taylor, from Andreas Beckman and Derek Palmer is your top 5. That's probably not quite the top 5 you'd have predicted before the session got underway, with Stuart Lyons 6th, Jessica Beckman 7th, Lewis Kent 8th, Rod Gilmore 9th, Carl Swift 10th, and Tim Docker, I'm fairly sure that's his fastest time of the weekend so far, 47.1 in 11th place. Tim actually had a puncture in free practice earlier on as well, so it's good to see that Tim got the car out there. We heard that Lewis Kent had some dramas in practice as well, but all 11 cars got out there for qualifying, which is what we wanted to see, and it is so competitive. The gaps, as you'll see when we confirm the lap times in a moment or two, the gaps between the cars are extremely tight, and that bodes really well for an exciting pair of races later on today. So Ash Sutton, as we suspected, bringing the car back into the pit lane. He's not going to complete the lap, so he was the last car to see the checkered flag, therefore he is the last car into the pit lane to round out the session. The cars have to go into Parc Fermé, which is why Ash pulled sharp right into the Parc Fermé area. The rest of the cars that were already in the pit lane when the session finished, they're being pushed back down in towards Parc Fermé so they can have the post-qualifying scrutineering checks, check the cars are all legal, check that they pass scrutineering. If they do, then we will have an official grid, but we'll give you confirmation of that just before we get into race 1 later on. Don't forget, both races streamed live as well as qualifying, all in one day. So usually we would race on the Sunday, but we're racing on Saturday here at Oulton Park, and it's a single day format that's being used, and it seems so far to be fairly popular with people. There's Lewis Kent, who rounded the session out in 8th place after having a couple of lap times disallowed, but the Hyundai i30, which has potential, we know that. It's just a case of getting the consistency, I think, out of Lewis. Lewis arrives here 5th place in the championship, but only 6 points behind Jessica Beckman. So Lewis, who had himself a podium finish back at Brands Hatch. He's had 1 podium finish so far this year and a 4th place finish last time out at Castle Combe. So the speed has been improving as the year has gone on, and he could get himself into the top 3 or 4 in the championship before the end of the year. There's Tim Docker, who is sort of dipping his toe in the water this weekend and looking towards future inclusions in TCR UK. As I said, really nice to have a new name on board, a really good looking car as well. I think that VW Golf GTI TCR car really suits the white and blue and grey paint scheme. And Tim Docker makes his way into the pit lane, and I think he's the final car that will make his way back around. So a breathless qualifying session, and here is confirmation of how it rounds out with Ashley Sutton on his debut in the championship on the pole position. It looked for most of the session like it would be a Pyro 1-2, but Dan Lloyd, championship leader, on his last flying lap gets up there onto the front row of the grid. You can never count him out, can you? So it's Sutton from Lloyd on the front row. Row 2 will be Ollie Taylor and Andreas Beckman, 2nd and 3rd respectively in the championship, 3rd and 4th on the grid for this race, but the top 4 covered by 9/10 of a second. It's very tight indeed. Derek Palmer is 5th in the first of the Alfa Romeo Giuliettas. Stuart Lyons is 6th in the first of the Maximum Motorsport Cupras. And then Jessica Beckman 7th. Lewis Kent 8th in the Hyundai. Robert Gilmore in the 2nd of the Alphas, at least getting the full session under his belt though, which is great news. He's 9th place. And Carl Swift rounding out the top 10, but he will, the same as his teammate Stuart Lyons, they'll both tell you that they are much more racers than qualifiers. Well, the cars are all back in the pit garages now, and we can head down to Bryn, I believe, in the pit lane.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. I am with our pole sitter, and first time we've seen you in a car. I mean, you came out yesterday and did a pretty storming lap, but that was pretty remarkable work.
Yeah, for sure. Firstly, thanks to Vires and Connect Racing for obviously having me here this weekend. Finley's opted out this round, and it's meant that we can jump in. So yeah, first time in a TCR car yesterday, and since then it's been really good.
Now, with qualifying, it's always quite tricky because you know the fastest lap is conventional. Fastest lap gets you pole for race 1, but you have that little curveball of the 2nd fastest lap reverse grid top 10.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, we wanted to try and get pole and make an impact for everyone that's involved, all the sponsors, Team Pyro. It's good to give the boys something. But yeah, the second one, as you said, you never know where you fare up. So I believe, like you said, there's a bit of head scratching going on, and even myself, I'm not quite sure where we've lined up for that second one.
So you were sitting in the car, you did 6 laps, and then you were sitting in the car for what seemed like an age, waiting to go out again, and then all of a sudden Josh said, just send him out for one more lap, one final lap. So was that a pushing lap, or was it just out there to remind yourself of what the layout was of the international circuit at Oulton Park?
No, well, the idea there was to obviously just to be on circuit, circulating with the correct tyres on. So if someone did pip us, we were ready to go for that last lap. So yeah, I believe that obviously the job was done early doors, so we could sit in the pit lane and enjoy the breeze through the car, and not soaking up the temperature.
Absolutely. Now, you're on pole position for the first race, so I imagine that you're just going to be looking forward and hoping to bring it back in first. It's got decent pace, this car, isn't it?
Yeah, the car's mega. Pyro Motorsport, Verizon Connect Racing, they've done a mega job on the setup. It's brilliant on a one lap when you need it in qualifying to deliver that ultimate lap, and then come racing it seemed to hold up on the front tyres. So me switching back to front wheel drive from rear wheel drive is going to be a learning curve on tyre management, but anything's a challenge. I like a challenge.
And you've got a real challenge because you've got Dan directly behind you.
Yeah, for sure, and obviously teammate Ollie he's going to be there in the mix, so we'll just have to see how it goes, and I'm looking forward to race 2 as well with a bit of battling.
Fantastic. Well, we're going to be watching this with a lot of keenness. Ash, well done.
Thank you. Cheers.
There you go. There's our pole sitter for race 1. Where he is for race 2 is yet to be discovered, but Ash is leading the way. He came in here to Oulton Park yesterday evening for a kind of a quick visit. Got in the car, put in a pretty quick lap, actually, has to be said, when it came to testing. But today, showing what a champion is, Ash Sutton is going to be leading the way. Join us back here at Oulton Park for the first race in, well, not too long, a couple of hours' time.
Hello everyone, good morning and welcome to Oulton Park for our first race of the day here at this TCR UK race meeting. The BRSCC Mazda MX-5 Super Cup heading out onto the circuit. They're on their green flag lap now. We're only moments away from our first race of 3. We'll actually get to show you all 3 of the MX-5 Super Cup races this weekend because of course everything's condensed into one day. Usually they have a race on the Saturday and 2 on the Sunday, but everything happening in one day here at Oulton Park. So we get to show you all 3 of the 20-minute Mazda MX-5 Super Cup encounters. If you haven't seen this championship before, you are in for a treat. The racing couldn't be any closer, nor could the championship, because coming into this anti-penultimate round of the season, the top 2 in the championship, Jack Harding and Luke Herbert, are tied on points, 1,078 points apiece. It was a 3-way fight for the championship going into Castle Combe, but James Blake Baldwin, who won the 3rd race on the road, was later excluded from the result for contact with Steve Roberts, and therefore was excluded from the race. You can't count an exclusion as a dropped score, so although he's still 6th in the championship, he's now over 100 points. He's 108 points off the championship lead. Now, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that he could get himself back up there, but it's going to be a hard job for him to do. So Jack Harding and Luke Herbert then, who share the front row of the grid together for this one, are tied for the championship lead. It couldn't be any closer. Jack Harding it is who has the pole position, Luke Herbert alongside him. Aidan Hills, 3rd in the championship, appropriately is 3rd on the grid, ahead of James Blake Baldwin, the man who was attracting all of the attention, not necessarily for the right reasons at Oulton Park last time out. He is 4th on the grid. Johnny Greensmith 5th, and Simon Baldwin 6th. Then Carl Garnett, Will Stacey back with us again this weekend. Gary Townsend and James Harris rounding out the top 10. 20 minutes of racing for the BRSCC Mazda MX-5 Super Cup. This one-make rear-wheel drive sports car series that never fails to entertain. This is going to be a cracking trio of races. Drivers all saying that qualifying was important. Well, let's find out how much ground they can make from a bit further down the order, because the lights are out. We're away and racing for the first time today. Jack Harding from the front row of the grid trying to hold on to the race lead, but it looks like Luke Herbert is going to get across and take the lead. So Luke Herbert from the outside of row number 1 gets the lead down towards Old Hall Corner, and that is crucial because it's his championship ride. They got past Will Stacey sideways on the grass, several cars running wide as you'd expect at the first corner at Old Hall, but miraculous, they all get through. So it's Herbert from Harding, from Hills, from Greensmith, the top 4, and then the pair of Baldwins. Now I think it's still James ahead of Simon, but we'll check that out in a moment or two as they round Cascades for the first time and make their way down the Lakeside Straight, with Luke Herbert trying to do what Luke Herbert does best and pull away from the rest of the field. Now I was talking to him yesterday evening in the paddock, and he said that he really hadn't been happy with the car all year long. He said it just down on power. Oops, we'll get back to that in a moment though, because there's a car heading towards the gravel trap. Surely they can't fit through that gap. Oh, they can. Whoever that was, a miraculous escape, gets back on the road, albeit right down towards the tail end of the field. But yeah, Luke Herbert was saying to me yesterday that the car just felt like it was down on power all year long, and it really manifested itself at Castle Combe last time out, where he lost quite a few championship points as a result of the car just not being as quick as it should have been. Well, they found what they believe the problem was, and so Luke Herbert should be up to full speed this weekend as they drop down towards Hislops for the first time. Top 2 getting away from this fight for third, going on between Aidan Hills and Johnny Greensmith. Now Aidan has this miraculous run of podiums. We've had 5 race meetings so far this year in the Mazda MX-5 Super Cup, and at every one of those race meetings Aidan Hills has had 1 podium finish. But he's desperate to get that first win of the season. He is still in championship contention, 3rd place in the points, and only 28 points off the lead. And he said, I have to beat Luke and Jack in every race this weekend, otherwise I've got no chance of winning the championship. Well, in the early stages of this first race of the weekend, things aren't quite going to plan. He's slipping backwards, he's playing rear gunner almost for the top 2 and holding the rest of the field up. So it's going to be Herbert from Harding from this 3-way fight for third between Aidan Hills, Johnny Greensmith and James Blake Baldwin. And Johnny Greensmith, for my money, looks a bit quicker than Aidan Hills at this stage of the race. He's really applying the pressure. They streak across the start-finish line for the first time, and Aidan Hills will have to defend the inside line. Greensmith goes to the outside down towards Oulton Corner. James Blake Baldwin's in there as well, and Carl Garnett spinning into the barriers in the background. What on earth happened there? That was a very strange place to see a car going off. Greensmith is going to lose 4th place by the looks of it to James Blake Baldwin, but a dramatic moment further back for the 7th place car, Carl Garnett, and that may well have ended his race. Leaders though across the start-finish line, and through Cascades, excuse me, down the Lakeside Straight. And yeah, there's no sign of Carl Garnett in the background, so he's certainly off the road. Whether he's able to rejoin, we'll have to wait and see. James Blake Baldwin, who has worked his way now into 4th position, will want to try and get past Aidan Hills as quickly as possible and go after the leading 2. There is Carl Garnett. Oh, and he's been to the rector cell barriers down there at Old Hall as well. It hasn't done too much damage to the car, but the number 19 machine very much out of the race by the looks of it. Now, will that require a safety car period? If it does, that's brilliant news for Aidan Hills and James Blake Baldwin, because look at the gap that they've lost to the race leader. Well, the answer to the question is no, we won't need a safety car because Carl Garnett is back underway. That's good to see. It's the joy of those rector cell barriers that you can have a fairly sizable off, but not really do that much damage to the car. They absorb most of the impact before you get anywhere near the tyre barriers. Leaders then in towards Hislops. Herbert from Harding, inches between them, as often is the case, and that's why they're tied for the championship lead coming into this round, once you take the drop scores into account anyway. That is what matters. You drop your 3 worst scores for the season, and Johnny Greensmith losing another place there out of Knickerbrook, runs wide on the grass. Now, has the car got a problem? He certainly seemed to be slow out of the corner. Now, whether that was because he went on the grass or whether that's the reason he went on the grass, I'm not too sure. He's lost another place now to Simon Baldwin. Greensmith goes from 4th to 6th in half a lap. Things not quite going to plan for the Knock Hill race winner. Leaders down towards Lodge, and Jack Harding now starting to apply the pressure, and Luke Herbert really skating around under braking there as he tried to defend the inside line. The trouble is, you go in tight into Lodge, that means that you get a bit more understeer on the exit of the corner. You can sometimes be vulnerable across the start-finish line. But Luke Herbert is an expert at leading races under pressure, and he's really going to have some pressure in this one from Jack Harding. 3 towards Old Hall Corner they go. There's the fight for third. James Blake Baldwin looking for a gap on the inside of Aidan Hills. You know, that exclusion at Castle Combe, for some drivers, it would have stopped them being quite so aggressive. But with James Blake Baldwin, you just know if there's half a gap, he's going to go for the move. And Aidan Hills, well aware of that as well. Had to get over to defend, but he just about managed to hang on to the place. They're sort of pairing off now, aren't they? 2 for the lead, 2 for the third. Then Simon Baldwin and Johnny Greensmith, who is still going in 6th position. James Blake Baldwin weaving this way and that, goes from the inside to the outside, back to the inside again, but you just can't really overtake down in towards Island Bend. It is notoriously difficult to overtake in general at Oulton Park, and that's why the drivers place so much importance on qualifying, getting yourself the track position right from the word go. Well, Jack Harding thought he'd done the job by getting pole position for this race, but didn't get off the line as well as he could have done. And so that means that he's now got some work to do to find a way back ahead of Luke Herbert. So 5 minutes gone, quarter of the race down. We've got Luke Herbert leading Jack Harding from Aidan Hills and Blake Baldwin 3rd and 4th. Simon Baldwin and Johnny Greensmith are next up. Then Will Stacey is 7th. Gary Townsend is 8th. Sam Tatler is 9th. And Will Stevenson rounding out the top 10 ahead of Colin Bysouth, who we've grown accustomed to seeing inside the top 10 this season. But things not quite going to plan thus far at Oulton Park. Back out of Nick Brook go the top 2. Then this fight for 3rd, top 2 a little bit closer at this stage. And of course is the fight for the championship lead, and with just 9 races to go this year, it is all the more important. Every point matters now between these two drivers. And Jack Harding is really applying the pressure to Luke Herbert as they head out of Druids down towards Lodge, arguably the best overtaking opportunity on the circuit. Luke Herbert knows that, so he comes to the inside line. He's really skitterish under braking though. The car is moving around an awful lot, and Jack Harding gets into the back of him, in fact. A bit of contact there between the two of them. Unintentional, I think, but because Luke Herbert was so unstable under braking, he just wasn't able to carry them in corner speed, and Harding just sort of ran into the back of him. But you can see that actually hurt Harding more than it hurt Herbert, because it cost him momentum out of the corner. And so Luke Herbert's actually able to scoot away to the tune of half a second by the time they reach the start-finish line. Extreme effect, though, even around a tight and technical circuit like this, should be enough to pull Jack Harding back onto the rear bumper of his championship rival. Before too much longer, he should be back with him. We have lost one car, I noticed there, that was pulled off at the side of the road. I think that was Darren Stapleton, who has been part there since the start of the race. I think that he pulled off on the first lap as well. But, this lead battle continuing to intensify as they make their way down towards Ireland through this dauntingly quick left-hander. You run an inch too wide through there, and that's it. Your race is probably over, either in the gravel trap or the tyre wall. They both get through there okay. Definitely looks like Harding's a bit quicker though here, doesn't it? He's been able to latch right back onto the tail of Luke Herbert, and Luke having to drive through his mirror more than he's driving through his windscreen at this stage. Heads in towards the Britain chicane, clobbering the curb on the left and on the right as well, but careful not to lose the rear of the car on the exit, because then you're accelerating steeply uphill over hilltop down towards the Hislop chicane, which is a possible overtaking opportunity. But you really need to try and force that mistake out of the driver in front at the previous corner, so as to be able to get the overlap down into the next braking zone. Through Hislops, then in towards this tricky off-camber right-hander at Knickerbrook. Through that right-hander they go, just up to the edge of the curve for Luke Herbert, not an inch beyond it. Aidan Hill still holding on to this 3rd position. Harding instead, he already has the fastest lap, and he just set the fastest first sector of anybody in this race so far as well, using the slipstream to achieve that, of course. Now in the middle sector, he's getting held up by Luke Herbert again. Out of Druids they come. Is there a move on this time? This is where Herbert has seemed vulnerable so far, and Jack Harding is definitely close enough to have a go. Luke Herbert hugging the white line down the inside of the road. Aidan Hill's behind doing likewise, but Jack Harding goes for it up the inside line. Oh, there's contact between the two of them. Surely, I think they just avoided it, but Jack Harding saw half a gap and really wanted to go for it, but Luke Herbert just about got his car over to the inside of the road in time, and that was the first genuine overtaking attempt there from Jack Harding, I think, and it almost ended in tears. Jack will be liking the fact that he feels he's quicker here, and he'll be wanting to capitalise on that. Any other circuit, if you're a bit quicker than someone in this championship, you're probably going to be able to find a way through, but here at Oulton Park it is just so difficult to make the move stick without that little bit of contact, and Jack Harding, a bit of contact last season cost him his hopes of a championship, because he was up there in the championship mix, had an exclusion mid-season, a bit like James Blake Baldwin has this year, and that meant that he couldn't drop it, and it put him out of championship contention. He's been driving so carefully all season long to try and avoid a repeat of that, but when you're in a situation like this where you know you're quicker than someone, you just can't prise the door open. It's so tempting sometimes just to use the bumper to make that gap a bit bigger. Jack is a clean driver. All of the drivers say that they have loads of respect for Jack, and that's because he shows them respect when they're racing him wheel to wheel. And Luke Herbert will be top of the list of drivers, full of praise for Jack Harding's really clean and gentlemanly racecraft, but when there's a championship on the line, how gentlemanly can you afford to be? Back down towards Hislops they come again. Herbert, again, the car doesn't look particularly stable under braking, does it? He's really having to throw the car into the corner so as to deter Jack Harding from go on the inside. He's sideways again on the exit of the corner there, Luke Herbert, and that will cost him speed all the way up the hill. That is one of the worst corners to make a mistake at, because you accelerate steeply uphill over Clay Hill, past the water tower and in towards Druids, but then you can't really overtake at Druids. You can, however, force the driver in front to defend and maybe get a better exit from the corner and build up an attack down towards Lodge. That's what Harding is trying to do, but everywhere he wants to be, Luke Herbert is already there, over the hill, down towards Lodge again. Herbert to the inside, Harding to the outside. What about a switchback manoeuvre here, maybe? It's hard to go right round the outside, but you can cut back to the late apex, try and carry the speed across the start-finish line. No, just can't quite get there. And so still, Luke Herbert leads the way. Aidan Hills coming under similar pressure from James Blake Baldwin in their fight for third. James Blake Baldwin likewise just not able to get through. Harding everywhere he tries to make the move stick. Herbert, though, is really having to slow the car down mid-corner. They're still, though, the two fastest cars on the track, despite this really intense battling that we're getting. Aidan Hills is still third from an equally narrow margin over Blake Baldwin fourth and Greensmith fifth, with Will Stacey, Gary Townsend, Sam Tatler, Will Stevenson and Nick Dunn now rounding out the top 10. So we've lost Simon Baldwin into the pit lane, I believe, as James Blake Baldwin tries to go around the outside of Aidan Hills at Cascades. He's on the grass, though. Oh, that could damage the car. He's got to be careful rejoining. He does rejoin still in fourth place, but that was an ambitious move, trying to go around the outside at Cascades. It's hard enough to go up the inside at Cascades. Around the outside was never likely to work. There is the driver we've lost, though, from fifth position, Simon Baldwin, a stepbrother to James Blake Baldwin, in the pit lane and possibly out of the race. There's the replay. Well, Aidan Hills had every right there to run out to the edge of the road and show James Blake Baldwin the grass, which he did. They never made contact, I don't think. He just ran him out to the edge of the road and made sure they didn't come through. So that takes the heat off Aidan Hill for the time being. The same cannot be said, though, for Luke Herbert, who is still feeling this intense pressure from Jack Harding, his championship rival. Tied on points, these two, coming into this race, and that just adds to the pressure and adds to the intensity of this battle, because both of them know that one mistake, one drop point at any point now throughout the rest of the season could be the difference between winning the championship and finishing second. Neither of them want to finish second. They both want to take the championship. Luke, of course, the reigning champion. Jack Harding, though, looking for his first ever championship victory in the series in this, his third or fourth attempt. Yeah, Nick Dunn, another top 10 driver who's fallen by the wayside, I'm afraid. He was running in 10th position, but he stopped down at the Hislop chicane. Mechanical dramas seems to be his issue there. As the leaders turn into Lodge corner, Jack Harding all out of shape as he turns in, trying to get back to that late apex and get the power down as early as is humanly possible. Comes to the line, they will come, though. We've still got just under 8 minutes to go, though. 6 laps completed, still only just under 0.3 of a second between the two of them. But for the first lap in a while, Luke Herbert doesn't feel the need to defend in towards Old Hall corner. He nearly lived to regret that decision, though, because Jack Harding was there, looking to the inside line. Through Denton's in towards Cascades, that big bump on the braking zone, which could really unsettle the car on the way into the corner. And again, you can see that Harding is able to take a bit more speed into the turn. Just nowhere to go with it. He gets in the slipstream now down the Lakeside Straight. Luke Herbert, with this now more powerful engine than he had last time out of Castle Combe, is able just about to fend Jack off. The engines, of course, are all equal, but if you've got a problem with your car, obviously you're going to be down on power, and that's been the issue for Luke Herbert all season long. Because finally they've got the car back to the sort of performance levels that it should have. He's driving really well out in front of the field, keeping Jack Harding at bay. Aidan Hills, Blake Baldwin and Johnny Greensmith still fighting over third place, I saw in the background. That all looked quite entertaining as the leading duo make their way back out of Britain's and back over Hilltop once more. Johnny Greensmith, remember, fourth in the championship and is only some 16 points behind Aidan Hills as well, so that's quite a significant battle going on behind them. These two, you daren't take your eyes off them, because you just know that the moment that you turn away from this fight for the lead, something will happen, and the lead may well change. But they make their way out of Knickerbrook. They are 6.5 seconds now ahead of this fight for third, which is still raging on there. Aidan Hills with James Blake Baldwin back on his tail now, so it didn't take James too long to close back in that gap that had grown after his mistake at Cascades a lap and a half ago. But he's brought with him Johnny Greensmith, so 3 cars now fighting over the bottom step of the podium. There's a bit of trim now hanging off the side of Blake Baldwin's car. That's a legacy, presumably, of the grassy moment. Speaking of grassy moments, that I think is Alex Lindsley, or no, Tom Parker possibly, in car number 6. He's been off down at Knickerbrook. Blake Baldwin goes to the outside there, and that leaves the door open for a very opportunistic Johnny Greensmith to get up the inside and try and steal 4th place away. He shoves Blake Baldwin out onto the edge of the grass. They're still side by side, though, up towards Old Hall corner. This is for 3rd, 4th and 5th positions, remember. But Blake Baldwin, who looked to the outside in towards Lodge corner to try and do something something about Aidan Hills, ended up opening the door as wide as possible for Johnny Greensmith, who slithers through into 4th place. Great driving there from the former Porsche champion. He is a champion in Mazda MX-5 racing, but never in the MX-5 Super Cup is Johnny Greensmith. And, well, for the start of the season, he was definitely in contention. More dramas, I'm afraid. That's number 37 off, I think, Lodge Corner. That's James Harris, who's had a moment. He was running outside the top 10, though. Another car running out into the grass there at Oulton Corner. But James Harris, former Mark 1 podium finisher, now in the Super Cup this year. Let's see what happened to him. Oh, that was an interesting approach to Lodge Corner. Didn't make the barriers, or he did actually fairly substantial contact with the barriers, actually. He was diving up the inside of James Kell and just couldn't get the car stopped. So either a braking issue or missed braking point, one of the two. Either way, that's done a bit of damage to the car, but hopefully, again, thanks to those Rectatel barriers, he's been able to rejoin and should be able to complete the race with now less than 5 minutes to go. The order, Herbert from Harding, then that almighty gap back to Aidan Hills, who's withstanding all the pressure in 3rd place, but it's now no longer James Blake Baldwin who's on his tail. It's Johnny Greensmith, who's had a real resurgence in form this weekend. After midpoint of the season, as I said, just hasn't quite gone to plan for Johnny. He's had the odd flash of brilliance, but just the general outright pace hasn't necessarily been there. But for a circuit now that he's got lots of experience at, always has gone quite well here as Johnny Greensmith, and he can now sense a chance for a podium. Will Stacey is the next car behind them in 6th. From Sam Tatler, Gary Townsend, Will Stevenson, and now Colin Bysal taking advantage of a few others falling by the wayside. He's made his way into the top 10. Down Adam Druitt and Greensmith looking to the inside line, looking to the outside line, but as long as you defend the inside. Now this is what happened to Blake Baldwin a lap ago. Can Greensmith go right around the outside though? This is brave, but it could cost him that 4th place again. Blake Baldwin up the inside, they just trade a tiny bit of paint coming out of the corner. Wheel to wheel though between Johnny Greensmith and James Blake Baldwin, and in exactly the same manner in which he lost 4th place a lap ago, James Blake Baldwin is now going to regain the position as a result of Johnny Greensmith taking that wide line into Lodge. That's always the difficulty though, when you're in between, when you're attacking and defending, you want to try and focus all of your attentions on gaining the position and getting past the car in front of you. But then that means that if it doesn't work, if you go for a move and it doesn't quite pay off, you're very vulnerable to attack from the car behind. So Blake Baldwin is now back into 4th position. Can he finally prise the door open and get this 3rd place away from Aidan Hills? If Aidan gets it, it will continue this remarkable podium streak that he's on. If James Blake Baldwin gets it, it will further increase his chances of being able to get back into, maybe not championship contention, but certainly contention for a top 3 in the championship come the end of the year. Back out of Shelley goes. He might have got the undercut there. He's up alongside Aidan Hills. Is he? Aidan can't close the door this time, can he? They're going to lean on each other if they're not too careful. Blake Baldwin might be able to come through. Side by side, down towards Britons, but Aidan Hills had the inside line and just gets into the corner in front. But that was a really, really close bit of racing between the two of them. Leaders are as close as ever they have been as well as they come down through Hislop. Still Luke Herbert, they're leading the way from Jack Harding. But with 2.5 minutes to go, we're pushing it. I think we might have one more lap after this one, and that's it. So Jack Harding, it's sort of now or never, really. If he wants to get this race victory, he will, in the back of his mind, be thinking of the fact that we've got another 2 races to go still today. Usually, if you have the first race on the Saturday and then the other 2 races on the Sunday, you could sort of have a bit of time to repair your car after race 1 in time for races 2 and 3, but it's a very tight turnaround this weekend, so both of these drivers will very much be mindful of the fact that they can't really afford to damage their cars. Through Lodge they go. Herbert still hanging on, but by the skin of his teeth. Harding's had a couple of little goes, but how big a risk will he be willing to take? Well, we're about to find out, because we do only have time for one more lap here in this first race of the weekend for the BRSCC Mazda MX-5 Super Cup. Luke Herbert leads his championship rival Jack Harding by just 1/4 of a second as they go on to the final lap. These two sharing the points lead going into this race, so whoever finishes ahead in this one will take the championship lead going into race 2 later on this afternoon. Here's the fight for 3rd, which is still raging on. Aidan Hills is really having to defend now. His lap times are about 2 seconds off the ultimate pace because he's just driving around the inside of the circuit, and the 5th place man is now Will Stacey, because where has Johnny Greensmith gone? Johnny Greensmith has vanished. He's pulled off somewhere at the side of the road, I think. We'll pick up on that in a moment though, because the race leading battle is still ever intensifying as they head up towards Shell. Now this is where we saw Blake Baldwin attempt to make the move on Aidan Hills a lap ago. There is Johnny Greensmith in the pit lane. What a shame, he was having such a good race, and unfortunately it all comes to naught. Luckily for him, the 2nd race grid is based upon the 2nd fastest times from qualifying, so this won't affect his grid position. He'll still be able to line up 4th for that one later on this afternoon. Right, half a lap to go. Luke Herbert or Jack Harding, one of them surely is going to win the race and take the championship lead into this afternoon, but who is it going to be? Herbert has the lead. He's had it ever since he made that that storming start from the outside of row 1, snatched the first position away from Jack Harding right at the beginning of the race, and now he's doing everything he can to hang on for another 2 corners, because we've only got Druids and Lodge to go. But like so many races here at Oulton Park over the years, it's going to go down to the last corner. The last corner on the circuit is the best corner to overtake at, and so we see so many of these grandstand finishes where it comes right down to the very end of the race. And we're going to get to see another one here. Jack Harding trying to get the best possible run out of Druids, get in the slipstream. Herbert will surely defend the inside line, but at the moment he's not. Now he moves over to cover as Jack Harding shows his nose to the inside. Harding thinks about going forward, he just can't quite get there, and Luke Herbert stops the car on the apex to avoid running wide, and I think that should be enough. The checkered flag is being readied, and Luke Herbert will take the victory and the championship lead here at Oulton Park, and what a show they put on. That was squeaky clean races, racing inches apart for the whole 20 minutes. For third place, that's going to be even closer, I think, though, because it's a drag race to the line between Aidan Hills and James Blake Baldwin. We look towards the timing screen, and it goes to Aidan Hills by 42 1/1000ths of a second. That could not have been much closer. Aidan Hills, though, continues this podium streak. 6 race meetings, 6 podium finishes. A remarkable turn of form he's had this year. That first race win can't be far away. It's certainly not the first race win, though, for Luke Herbert. He's become rather accustomed to this. 12 months ago here at Oulton Park, he won all 3 races in a day. Nobody has done that yet in 2018, but Luke Herbert will be desperate to try and do that here this weekend. Some of the battling going on further back, a couple of cars running by. There's Nick Dunn fighting with his teammate George Grant, actually, both of them in the Clapham North liveries as they come through. James Harris is next in line. Those two were fighting for 15th and 16th respectively. Just goes to show the racing is equally as tight all the way throughout the field, but with the intensity of that race leading battle and the championship battle at the front of the field, we didn't dare take our eyes off it, and it's Luke Herbert who gets the early advantage here at Oulton Park. Looking ahead to race 2, incidentally, it will be the same order, so it will be Harding back on pole position by virtue of his second fastest lap time in qualifying, and Luke Herbert second once more. So Harding will be desperate to try and get that better start and hold on to the lead this time around, going through turn 1. Because really, that's where he lost that race that time around. It was all about the start. Luke Herbert, I don't think, was as quick as Harding. The slipstream, of course, was probably exaggerating that point, but I think Harding possibly had the pace to run away with it. Had he got the lead, he just couldn't quite find a way through. Confirmation of your result then. Luke Herbert wins by 3.5 tenths in the end over Jack Harding, who was never far away. Aidan Hills barely hung on to third place from James Blake Baldwin in 4th. Will Stacey, good to see him back at the sharp end as well after his nasty Silverstone shunt at the start of the year. He's 5th. Gary Townsend is 6th. Sam Tatler is 7th. Will Stevenson 8th. Colin Bysouth 9th. And Christian White into the top 10 as well, having started 13th. James Kell is 11th. Bradley Kent is 12th. Alec Liversley 13th. And Tom Parker 14th. George Grant 15th. Then Nick Dunn. James Harris recovered from a incident with the barriers into 17th. Mark Swarbrick is 18th, Nick Rutter 19th, and Duncan Harris rounds out the top 20. So that is how your order looks at the end of our first of 3 races for the BRSCC Mazda MX-5 Super Cup. Their second race is coming up later on this afternoon at about 3 o'clock, and that will be based on the second fastest lap times. Then, of course, we have the reverse grid race at the end of the day. But Luke Herbert, you know, I think he's quite happy about that, and I reckon that Jack Harding is going to come over and congratulate him on a brilliant defensive drive, which he does. Handshakes all round. That's really good to see. The camaraderie between the drivers in most of the BRSCC race series, it must be said, is really, really high, and it's good to see those two still getting on despite the intense nature of this championship battle. Well, down there in the heat of the action, ready to catch up with our podium finishers, is Bryn Lucas.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. I am with the race winner. That was, well, you probably didn't know this. There are a lot of races going on, but behind you, that was a heck of a battle.
Yeah, I was more worried about my battle. Yeah, I mean, me and Jack drove off. Jack proved in qualifying he had the pace to beat me. My only chance was my start, and thank God I got it off the line quick and got in front of him, because he was all over me. But I mean, from 2017 here, we had 3 races, and I learned a lot last year learning to defend 3 races around here. So yeah, brilliant.
And that was the game plan, was it? Just get ahead and then cling on, hold on.
Yeah, I mean, I knew I didn't have the pace to beat Jack, so it was get in front and defend. But it's thanks to all my sponsors. SRC Recycling. We wouldn't be here without them. So it's it's another win for us.
You guys do throw out some pretty good races, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, if there's anyone I want to race against on this grid, it's Jack. You know, we've never had a bit of contact, a little bit of rocking him, but, you know, just door rubbing. So, you know, he's a great driver. He deserved to win that as much as me. So it's down to us in the championship. So it should be a good year.
Well done, congratulations.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
There you go, there's our race winner. Let's head over now to Jack, who was second. It was such a hard-fought race, though. I mean, keeping you honest, I think, is what we say about Luke there.
Yeah, it was my race to lose, and I lost it off the start, and that was it. I know what it's like. It was so important to qualify pole around here, because last year I spent all 3 races staring at the back of Luke. So, yeah, he defended really well, and there's nothing I could do about it, really, but I gave it as much as I could.
Well, all you can do really here is just keep the pressure on and hope that they get a little bit wide.
Yeah, I found the inside of him a couple of times, but he just shut the door. But yeah, that's all you can do, just keep the pressure on. And I did that for the full 20 minutes. I'm absolutely knackered now. So starting from pole again next race. So hopefully we can convert that one into a win.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a fantastic race. Well done.
Thank you. Cheers.
Brilliant stuff. Let's move on now. There's our second place there to Jack Harding. If we move now to Aiden Hills, this was a second part of many, many races going on throughout the entire grid. But Aiden, what a fight you had. I mean, you were some 11, 12 seconds back from these two, but you had your own problems behind you as well.
Yeah, well, we changed the tyres from qualifying to the race, and it just didn't work. I knew as soon as I went out for the warm-up lap, I just didn't have the grip levels that I had in qualifying. So from then on out, if I didn't get a good start, well, I got on the right start, stayed in third, so I knew that I wasn't going to fight with them boys, and it was a case of just keeping the podium and trying to hold on, basically.
Yeah, but when you've got the likes of James Blake Baldwin, what, 0.2 of a second, if that, behind you, he was breathing down your neck for the majority of that race.
Well, yeah, James was there from lap 2, I think, and he was just on my bumper the whole race. You know, he's a hard person to defend against. He's a very hard racer, and obviously he's a former champion, so he knows what he's doing. But yeah, I'm glad we could keep him off. Change back to the old tyres again for the next 2 races and see if we can do a bit better.
Is that the plan?
That's the plan, mate, yeah.
Oh, good luck for race 2 today. Well done there to Aiden Hills. There you go. So 3 great, well, first, second and third drivers, I think you can say, but what racing from the top to bottom in that race there. Andy, that was a pretty exciting one to call. I know that from 1 to 2 there was 2 tenths, and then from 3 to 4 there were 2 tenths. It happened all the way through the pack. That was a tricky one to call, and Mazdas never ever disappoint.
No, that's absolutely right, Bryn. There's never a dull race in the BRSCC Mazda MX-5 Super Cup, and the good news is we get to enjoy 2 more of them later on this afternoon. But it is the championship lead now to Luke Herbert, but only by a couple of points over Jack Harding. Here are some highlights then of our first race of the day. It was all about the start, really. Luke Herbert beating Jack Harding off the line, whilst it almost all kicked off behind. James Blake Baldwin was stuck behind Aiden Hills for most of the race, just not quite able to find a way through. He had to go around the outside at Cascades, got on the grass and damaged his car. He was able to close back in though and continue the fight. James Harris tried an ambitious move at Lodge that ended in the tyre wall, whilst it was all kicking off in the fight for third. Johnny Greensmith briefly getting fourth before losing out again later on. Jack Harding tried everything to get past Luke Herbert but couldn't quite prise the door open. Herbert taking the lead, taking the win and the championship lead by 2 points going into the second race later on. Fantastic racing there throughout the field though, as you said, Bryn, because there's plenty of battling going on from the front to the back, and with the 24-car grid it's impossible really to keep up with every fight going on. But we picked up on a few of them. Nick Dunn made progress from 15th into the top 10 before his retirement. Christian White, who was a real standout performer last time out at Castle Coombe, worked his way from 13th up into the top 10 as well. So it was really exciting stuff, and the championship couldn't be any tighter. And as Jack said, he'll be back on pole position for race 2. If he can convert that into a race win with Luke Herbert second, then that will put them back on equal points again, going to the reverse grid race 3 later on. And that reverse grid race is always really exciting, often the most exciting race of the day. And of course on a circuit where it's not that easy to overtake, like this one here at Oulton Park, then it can be all the more entertaining. So Aiden Hills makes his way onto the third step of the podium, and he has his 6th podium finish of the year. And Aiden Hills, who will be very happy with that indeed. There's Jack Harding, been out of breath, a bit disappointed I'm sure to have not been able to convert pole position into the race victory, but he has another chance to do so later on. As I said, about 3 o'clock we'll have our second Mazda MX-5 Super Cup race of the day. But the drivers will be ushered up. They're having a word with the circuit commentator Mike Cookson at the moment, so they'll be ushered up one by one, and then we'll get to see them lift their trophies aloft in celebration. I think they'll keep the champagne spraying until the end of the day. They've got to use these race suits again later on. So there's Aiden Hills, he's up on the podium. Jack Harding now heads up as well. Well, he's lost the championship lead, but not by a huge amount, and with still another 8 races to go this year, there's time for him to get back up there. And the last couple of circuits that we go to as well, Croft, which is his local circuit, and then Donington Park, where he's won before, he knows that he can take the fight to Luke Herbert at those two circuits as well. So this is a championship I'm fairly sure that's going to run right down to the wire come the end of the season. But, Jack Harding, another podium. That's really been what he's been doing all season long, just consistently finishing on the podium. He's not won as many races as Luke Herbert has, but he's been more consistent. Luke, of course, had that disappointment back at Silverstone where he had an electrical issue at the start of the year. But Luke is now back on the top step of the podium where he will feel he belongs. It's been a bit of a dry spell, actually, for Luke. Hasn't won a race for a little while, but he's back up there now. A race winner here at Oulton Park, and he will seize the championship lead as a result. Luke Herbert, who's a very experienced driver, of course, across many disciplines of motorsport, mainly rear-wheel drive sports cars, where he's had most of his success. He is, as I said, the reigning MX-5 Super Cup champion, and he actually wrapped that title up last year with a race or two to spare, but I don't think he's going to have that sort of a luxury in 2018, because Jack Harding, even with James Blake Baldwin now out of the picture championship-wise, Jack Harding is more than capable of getting up there and taking the fight to Luke. So he gets the winner's garland, he gets the bottle of bubbly, and the winner's trophy as well. And Luke Herbert considering uncorking the bottle there, but I think he's gonna save that for later. That can be his post-race celebration later on this evening, provided, of course, the rest of the day goes his way. So that is our first MX-5 Super Cup race of the day done. The second one, as I said, coming up not scheduled to be at 3:05. Of course, that's depending on whether we get any delays, and they're also supposed to be our final race of the day at 6:10, and that's the one you don't want to miss as well. You don't want to miss either of them, but you certainly don't want to miss the reverse grid race, because that is always entertaining. So podium finishes then make their way down. They'll go off and celebrate and debrief with their team. Sounds like a few of them have got a few changes to make ahead of race 2 later on. The temperature is going to keep rising as well, I think, before races 2 and 3, as the sun is now well and truly out. It's getting nice and warm out there. Good news for the spectators, bad news for the drivers though, because they get very hot and bothered in the cars. It also means that their tyres start to overheat, and that can cause issues. That was something that Luke had a problem with at Castle Combe last time out. He said that in race 3 his tyre pressures went about 7 psi higher than they should have been, so they've got to manage that as the day goes on. So our first Mazda action is done for the day. We've got more support racing coming up though very shortly. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Oulton Park for our first race of the day for the Avon Tyres National Formula Ford 1600 Championship. The cars will be making their way out onto the circuit very shortly for their first of 2 races today. It's just a double header rather than the traditional triple header, because everything is compacted into one day here at Oulton Park. We have 1 race less, but that won't mean that we're down on excitement levels, because these 15-minute races are always fast and furious. The championship standings coming into this meeting, well, they make good reading if your name is Niall Murray, because he has pulled out now over a 100-point championship lead. However, that is before, even with drop scores though, he's still got a decent lead over Michael Eastwell and Matt Round-Garrido behind him. But Niall Murray has not been running away with these races. Yes, he's been winning more races than anybody else. Indeed, he won all 3 last time out at Castle Combe. He had 2 wins at Kirkistan in Ireland. He had 2 wins at Brands Hatch, 1 win at Knock Hill, and 1 back at Silverstone at the start of the season. But he's not winning the races by a long way. He's having to work his way through the field, not leading every lap by any means. But here at Oulton Park, where we know it's difficult to overtake, Niall will be wanting to take full advantage of his pole position start, because if he can convert that into the lead in towards turn 1, he's going to be a difficult man to find a way past, that's for sure. We've got a very, very high quality grid though this year, arguably the highest it's been in many years in the Avon Tyres National Formula Ford 1600 Championship, with most drivers on the grid capable of podium finishes and race wins, and certainly the top 10 or so all capable of doing just that. So the racing is incredibly close, incredibly competitive, and because these are single-seaters that do not rely on front and rear wings and aerodynamics and downforce. They can follow each other within inches without really losing any sort of grip. They can see the reason for our slight delay before this race got underway, because there was some barrier repair at Lodge Corner after the Mazda incident that we had midway through the previous race. It's often the way with these rector-cell barriers. You can have an accident that damages the barriers, but the car is actually able to pull away and continue. It gives us a moment, though, to just take in some of the scenery here at Oulton Park. The Oulton Park Swans out enjoying the lovely summer sunshine. This is what we really wanted to see, some Formula Fords making their way out of the pit lane and on to their green flag lap, format that I believe we use here at Oulton Park, with a different name to some other circuits, where they would come out of the pit lane on the out lap, line up on the grid, then go for another green flag lap. I believe that to try and speed things up here on what is a very tight timetable, the out lap doubles up as the green flag lap. So this is their last chance to see the track and get to grips with exactly what the conditions are like out there. So the field make their way through, and as I said, Niall Murray leading the championship. He is on pole position for this race as well, but the tyres were as tight as you'd expect. He was only 3/10 ahead of Luke Cooper, and indeed the top 11 cars, over half the grid, covered by less than a second. Here is confirmation of that grid then. Niall Murray on pole position, with Luke Cooper, winner from Silverstone at the start of the year, alongside him. Then it's Michael Eastwell and Jamie Thorburn who make up the second row of the grid, with Matt Rangarido and Luke Williams on row 3. Carter Williams, the American, has Joey Foster alongside on row number 4. Then it's Nico Gruber, the Austrian. It's a real international field this year, with Jack Wolfenden, the Brit, alongside him. Sebastian Job and Rory Smith make up row number 6 on the grid, and then behind them we have Jonathan Brown with Thomas Capet-Zone, the Swiss driver. And then it's Vincent Jay and Simon Fleet, who I believe is the same Simon Fleet that we've seen racing in Mazdas in the past, whilst George McDonald is at the tail of the field. Now, we do have two different classes here. The bulk of the field running in the Pro class for the post-1989 cars. We do have a few Clubman's drivers though. There's one Clubman's pre-90 car, which is Simon Fleet in the 1988 Van Diemen. Two Clubman's 89 drivers as well, post-89 drivers, Vincent Jay and George McDonald. So we'll try and check in with them later on. They're towards the tail end of the field, of course, because they are more amateur drivers, as the name would suggest. The Pro class is for the drivers who either do this for a living, or they are just good enough that they can be regarded as a professional racing driver, that you know they're going to be in the mix in every race. And that's why it's such a high quality field, because the entirety of the Pro grid are separated by virtually nothing, and that's what makes this racing so exciting. However, we know the start is important here at Oulton Park, and Niall Murray, well, if they let him get out in front and get his head down, there's every likelihood that he'll be able to pull a gap and make a break from the rest of the field. That's not what he'll want to do, not what everyone else will want to do. It's exactly what he'll want to do. He'll want to get out in front and not look back. But the likes of Luke Cooper and Michael Eastwell in particular, who is still remarkable, despite being second in the championship, still looking for his first win of the year. He hasn't yet won a race, and in fact Matt Rangarido, who's third in the points, has only taken the one race victory this year, and they line up second and fifth respectively on this grid. So it's the white, blue and orange car of Niall Murray on the pole position. Luke Cooper's is the red and white Swift. We've got 5 different makes of Formula Ford in the top 5, actually. Van Diemen from Swift, from Spectrum, Ray and Medina Sport. So we have 5 different cars at the front. The cars, I know, all look more or less the same, but they do have different chassis. All of them, of course, run the same engine, a 1600cc Ford engine, but the bodies themselves, there are subtle differences, and it's good to see that they're fairly well evenly matched out there on the grid. Those top 5 covered by just 4/10 in qualifying. So back row of the grid even starts to form up. Niall Murray on the left, Luke Cooper on the right, with Michael Eastwell and Jamie Thorburn, the Scot, trying to make their way through from row number 2. We've seen in our first race of the day, the Mazdas, that the outside of row 2 was the place to be if you wanted a good start. Will that be the case here in this race? Well, let's find out, because our first of 2 races today for the Avon Tyres National Formula Ford Championship is about to get underway. The green flag is waved at the back of the grid. The driver's eyes turn to the red lights, and this possibly the most important 5 or 10 seconds or so of the race. The launch off the line and the rush in towards Old Hall Corner. Niall Murray on pole position. Luke Cooper alongside. The red lights go on. They go out. Now we're away and racing, and who will make the best start from the front of the grid? Decent start made by Niall Murray by the looks of it from pole position, and yes, he will snatch the lead down towards Old Hall. It's going to be Luke Cooper second, Eastwell third, and Thorburn fourth, so in grid position. But Luke Williams, I think that is, has come around the outside of Matt Rangarido to snatch fifth place away. So Matt Rangarido not making a brilliant start. Down the hill they go in towards Cascades. He fights back on the inside though of Luke. Can't quite get the place back. So cleanly through Old Hall. They're all cleanly through Cascades as well. And already the top two starting to make a little bit of a break here. Niall Murray and Luke Cooper. Now because this is a more technical circuit than some of the others, it's not all about straight line speed. And it's not all about slipstreaming. So you can make a bit of a break here. Mistake there from Luke Cooper though. Locks up the brakes. The brakes just a little bit cooler than he'd have liked. Couldn't quite stop the car in towards Shell. But yes, back to my point about slipstreaming. Usually we'd say that if you can break away by about 1 second, you've broken the toe and the rest of them can't use the slipstream to then close in on you. So you can try and then build a bit of a gap. But around here, that gap really is more like half a second to 6/10 that you need to find, because there is no straight really long enough to take full benefit of that slipstream. And well, Niall Murray's already got the better part of a second, I reckon, over Luke Cooper in second, Eastwell third, Thorburn fourth, and then fifth place for Luke Williams, sixth place then the red and white XL car of Matt Rangarido, and then by the looks of it, Carter Williams, the American, is heading up the next trio of cars as they make their way out of Nickenbrook and over Clay Hill once again in towards this tricky double apex right-hander at Druids. It's all starting to stack up slightly now behind Luke Cooper for second place. Through they go, 4 cars on top of each other practically as they head down towards the best overtaking opportunity on the circuit. And well, I thought for a moment there that Michael Eastwell was going to start attacking Luke Cooper. He's actually busy defending from the other blue and white car, Jamie Thorburn. He's going to try and go right round the outside here. That's brave. Couldn't quite do it. Cuts back to the inside though, and that still doesn't work. He can't quite get himself fully alongside. Luke Williams in there as well, but Niall Murray's lead at the end of the opening lap is a remarkable 1.6 seconds. Matt Rangarido back at the inside of Luke Williams though, trying to take fifth place away. Oh, don't tangle wheels on the exit of the corner. Luke has to take the grass, and I think that will mean that Rangarido goes through. Oh, he almost puts Luke Williams on the grass going down to Cascades, but yes, Matt Rangarido does go back through into that fifth position, so he's back where he started now. It took him over a lap to get back into that position, back out of Cascades, down the straight. This is allowing Luke Cooper to pull away. We'll watch his lap times with interest to see whether he can now bridge the gap to Niall Murray. Michael Eastwell in third has suddenly become the cork in the bottle. From Thorburn, Rangarido, then Williams, then Rangarido, then Williams, then the other Williams, Carter Williams, and Joey Foster, the black car there, car 155, never far from the action, has got Nico Gruber, car number 77 behind him. So this is the group of cars fighting over the bottom step of the podium in these early stages. Through Britain chicane they go, where traditionally there would have been tyre stacks on the apex of the corners and stop drivers cutting them, but they've now been replaced with these sausage curbs, which do punish you for cutting the corners. You can damage your car quite easily on those curbs. More of them down here at the Hinslow chicane as well. Floppy marker goes flying. That didn't take long. I think it was Jamie Thorburn who sorted that this time around. As they head through Nickenbrook, here's the other floppy marker goes as well. It's, as well as the curbs, they put these bits of plastic on the inside of the corners, which really don't do that much to deter corner cutting, if I'm perfectly honest. But there you go. Top two getting away from this third place battle that makes its way back through Druids. I may have said 15-minute races before. They're actually 20-minute races this weekend because of the fact we only have the 2 races rather than 3. So we have slightly longer races, albeit 1 fewer race than we are accustomed to. So the leaders are about to come across the line. The lead gap was 1.6 seconds between Niall Murray and Luke Cooper. At the end of that 2, it's 1.9 seconds because Niall Murray sets the fastest lap of the race at 1 minute 48.909. That is worth 2 championship points, all helping his championship cause. More floppy markers going flying at Old Hall Corner. There can't be any left now. Surely we're only on to the 3rd lap of the race. But it looks like Luke Cooper, if anything, is starting to fall back into the clutches slightly now of Michael Eastwell in 3rd position. Then it's Thorburn, then it's Rangarido, and then we've got this Luke Williams, Carter Williams and Joey Foster scrap for 6th position. They're the 3 cars on your screen now. Luke Williams, the white and blue, then you've got the all-green car of the American Carter Williams, and then Joey Foster, Formula Ford 1600 legend, multiple Brands Hatch Formula Ford Festival winner and Walter Hayes Trophy winner at Silverstone is Joey Foster, but just not having quite the look this season. He arrives here 15 points. He's had a win back at Silverstone, but only the 1 win this year for Joe. In fact, he won the first race of the year from pole position. Hasn't really been able to recreate those highs all season long. Down towards his lots we go, side by side almost here between Matt Rangarido. Oh, contact! Oh, Carter Williams into the back of Luke Williams. They're both off and both out of the race, and that is one of the real risks of Formula 4 1600 racing, these wheels stick out so wide, it's very easy to get tangled together. Well, remarkably, Luke Williams is continuing, but Carter Williams, I'm fairly sure, will be going no further. But that is a real shame that had to happen. Here's the replay. You can see Luke Williams defends the inside line. Carter goes to the outside. Just tried to jink back to the inside line, misjudged it slightly, ran into the back of Luke Williams' car, and Luke will be lucky not to have sustained any sort of exhaust or gearbox damage there, because that part of the car is quite susceptible to damage with rearward contact. Meanwhile, change for second place, because Michael Eastwell has found a way past Luke Cooper, who I said was falling back into his clutches, and it didn't take long for Michael to find a way through. So Eastwell now second, Cooper down to third. Can he fight back? That now becomes the question. They're 2.8 seconds behind the fastest lap setting Niall Murray out in front, who is just checking out the rest of the field. But 4 cars fighting over second place now. They've become slightly detached from the rest of them behind as a result of the contact between the pair of Williams behind. Carter Williams, as I suspected, has not come through at the end of the lap. Luke Williams did come through, and I don't even think he pitted. So Luke Williams, I think, has amazingly got away without too much damage from that contact. There's Carter Williams, who also makes it back in the pit lane. I could have sworn he had some suspension damage. He certainly got bodywork damage. The nose cone's gone missing, but actually that could have been a lot worse. So here's this second place fight as it makes its way down through the right-hander towards the Britain chicane. Eastwell, Cooper from Thorburn, and Eastwell runs a bit wide there. Luke Cooper will have a much better exit now from the chicane in theory, but actually I think almost ran into the back of Eastwell, had to lift off the throttle. They're all jockeying for position again now down towards the chicane. Now this is where it all went wrong a lap ago. Let's hope that these lock keep it clean. Luke Cooper launches to the inside of Michael Eastwell as Matt Rangarino goes around the outside of Jamie Thorburn, and that was a peach of a move. He went around the outside of the first part of the Hislop chicane. That gave him the inside for the left-handed element, and through he goes. So place gained by Matt Rangarino. It's his second place gained of the race so far, and he's now into 4th position. Here's a replay. Watch the 2 cars in the background. You'll see the lock-up there from Luke Cooper, but Rangarino goes around the outside of Jamie Thorburn. It's a risky move because you risk getting put on the grass, of course, or making contact, but if it works, you look like an absolute superstar because you get the inside line for that next corner. And now Matt Rangarino is on the fringes of the podium. Drop back down into Lodge Corner. Jamie Thorburn, though, will have ideas, of course, of getting that place back. And Matt Rangarino make more moves so far in this race. Can he make another one and get onto the podium? He looks to the inside of Luke Cooper here. He's late on the brakes. He might just do it. No, Luke carries a bit more speed into the corner and just about hangs on to the place. Matt Rangarino, who, as I said, has the 1 win this year from Knock Hill. The first race at Knock Hill, really it was Brands Hatch where his championship was derailed with 3 non-finishes. He didn't finish any of the races at Brands Hatch. He went into that weekend as a real championship contender, but it just all fell off the rails slightly, and now he's really just fighting to try and get himself back into the top 2 in the points. Murray looking fairly uncatchable both in this race and in the championship chase. So approaching half race distance nearly, 12 minutes still to go, so a bit over halfway. And Michael Eastwell, for the time being, weathering the storm, keeping Luke Cooper behind. Luke, I think, is more preoccupied really with what Matt Rangarino is doing, because Matt has been by far the raciest of the drivers out there so far in this one. Can find a way onto the podium. Of course, the further up the order you get, the harder the overtakes become. This is where he made the move a lap ago. He went around the outside on that occasion. This time he had a look to the inside, but they don't really do that much braking down there, these cars, because they weigh so little. The brakes are really efficient. The smaller the braking zones are, of course, the less scope there is for overtaking. So it's difficult unless you're already alongside, like Matt Rangarino was a lap ago. It's difficult to make that move stick. Another fastest lap was set last time out by Niall Murray, by the way, and he's now done 2 purple sectors again on this lap. So Niall Murray, every lap so far has been the fastest lap, and this one doesn't look like being any different. What's going to happen for second place, though, with Michael Eastwell there defending the inside line, and Luke Cooper likewise from Matt Rangarino in 3rd position through the right-hander to go over the crest at Deersley. Is it another fastest lap for Murray? It is, yes, new fastest lap, 48.039. As for 3rd place, they're side by side again with Luke Cooper defending the inside into Old Hall. With Matt Rangarino looking from the outside back into the slipstream again now as they go down the avenue and in towards Cascades, of course, to the right-hand side of the road. Not really around the outside at Cascades, though. Just instead trying to get the quicker exit from the corner and try and carry that speed all the way down the Lakeside Straight. Just didn't really quite come to anything, did it? They've dropped Joey Foster, who's still ahead of Nico Gruber, 6th and 7th respectively. Jack Wolford with his 8th. 9th place is the 45 car of Rory Smith, and 10th is Sebastian Job, so he's worked his way now into the top 10. Rory Smith is being warned for exceeding the track limit. He's been given the black and white driving standards flag. once too often over those white lines. The white lines denote the edge of the circuit. You're allowed to use the curbs, but if you go over the edge of the curbs at any point, then you are deemed to be exceeding the track limits, and you get a warning. But if you do it again, you get a 5-second time penalty, then a 10-second penalty, and it goes up and up until eventually you get excluded from the race. Now, I've never seen someone excluded from the race for exceeding track limits before, but you do quite often see 5 and 10-second penalties applied, especially around a circuit like Oulton Park, where it's so easy to run a bit wide on the extra review of the corners, tip a wheel onto the grass and get pinged for track limits, and it can really ruin your day. Niall Murray, though, working his way up towards Druids. He's got a 5.2-second lead over this very entertaining scrap for second place, which is still headed by Michael Eastwell. Luke Cooper third, Matt Ranguido fourth, Jamie Thorburn just a bit detached now in fifth. It's really all about the 2 red and white cars, isn't it, with Luke Cooper defending third place again from Matt Ranguido, who's looking to the outside. Now watch for the cutback. He's going to try and get the late apex here and carry some more speed through the dip at Deers Leap. Can't get up the inside, but he will carry a bit more momentum out of the corner, using the slipstream to further his advantage, pulls to the outside line. Now he's fully alongside, in fact he's always got his nose in front, but you're never going to go around the outside of Oulton corner. So again, he tries to cut back, carries some speed out of the corner, that will help him. Luke Cooper gets 2 wheels out onto the dirt. Matt Ranguido might be alongside down towards Cascades, he is, but he's on the outside line. That's again not really going to work. What about the exit speeds here though? Luke Cooper using the camber of the corner there at Cascades to avoid running too wide on the exit, but he will still have to defend down towards Island Bend. Matt Ranguido looks the quicker of these two at the moment, but he just can't make the move work wherever he wants to be. He can't get to the inside of the road because Luke Cooper's defending so well. He can't really go around the outside of many of these corners. This is holding this whole group up though, and so Joey Foster and Nico Gruber are getting ever larger in their mirrors. You can see there the 2 cars just at the tail end of this quartet, and they're definitely getting closer as the battling in front intensifies. A mistake there from Luke Cooper, just drifts a bit wide. The middle part of Britain's clobbers the curb, and so now Matt Ranguido's back in the tow again. Over the hill, down towards Hislops he goes, outside line, gets his nose in front once more. Can he try and recreate the move that he made on Jamie Thorburn a few laps ago? The answer is no. So Luke Cooper still hanging on to third, but he's sideways again, going out of Knickerbrook. Ranguido again has the chance to get alongside towards Druids, but if ever there was a corner at Oulton Park you don't want to run side by side through, it is up at Druids. Through the left-hand kink from the water tower, through to the first of these 2 apexes. You clip that one, run a bit wide, then clip the second, but the last thing you want to do in these low slung single-seaters is hit the curb through there at those speeds. Jamie Thorburn now starting to make himself a nuisance as well, trying to attack Matt Ranguido, who again takes the outside line and locks up the front brakes. But for a moment that might have allowed Thorburn through on the inside. He does run wide again on the exit though, does Matt, and that takes the pressure off of Luke Cooper and puts it well and truly on the shoulders of Matt Ranguido, because Jamie Thorburn is alongside him almost into Old Hall corner. There's just not enough room for the 2 cars to get through. Front of the field, by the way, Niall Murray is 6.2 seconds clear, and he's set another fastest lap now, 1:47.864. That would have been good enough for 8th place on the grid in qualifying, so he is just getting quicker and quicker. There he is. Lest we forget that he is in this race and he's charging away, looking for what will be his 4th race victory on the bounce and his 6th race victory from the last 7 races. The only race that he hasn't won in the last 2 meetings was a non-finish at Kyrgyzstan over in Ireland in the 3rd race. Other than that, he's been on this phenomenal winning streak and really hasn't letting anybody else throughout the second half of the season at least have a share of the race victories. 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th place cars, they're all still pretty close together. If anything, I'd say Luke Cooper, now that he's released himself from the pressure from Matt Ranguido, he's possibly closing back in on Michael Eastwell, but Michael is 1.3 seconds up the road, so that's going to be difficult for Luke to close in. We've got 6 minutes still to go though, so anything can happen. Things can still change. Jamie Thorburn there with a wheel on the grass as he turned into Knickerbrook, and now we see Joey Foster joining in the front. So Joey Foster, the black 155 car, who we haven't really seen that much of in this race so far, but he's now right on the tail of 5th place man Jamie Thorburn. So as they turn their way through Druids, these now become the 2 closest cars inside the top half dozen or so. And with just over a quarter of the race still to go, what further progress can Joey Foster make? He started 8th, so he's gained 2 places already, which around here is no mean feat. As we've said and we've seen all day long, it's difficult to overtake here, so to make any sort of progress from your grid position is positive. Of course, he was helped by the fact that the 2 Williams got together down at Hislops. Incidentally, Carter Williams never did rejoin from pit lane, so he at the moment is our only retirement in the race. He's still in the pits now with the car undergoing repairs, ready for race 2 later on today. But everybody else, all 16 other cars, are still circulating. Through Cascades they go, back down the Lakeside Straight, 5 minutes to go, a quarter of the race still remains. The gap between second and third that I thought might have been coming down, it actually went out by 100th of a second, so they didn't match each other, but Michael Eastwell and Luke Cooper that time around. They just spread out ever so slightly. Just sense though it's going to start building again. Matt Rangarino in fourth, doesn't look as strong now as he did earlier on in the race, and so Jamie Thorburn definitely closer to him than he is to Luke Cooper in third. Can Jamie Thorburn find a way back into that fourth position that he lost about 10 minutes or so ago? There's Niall Murray back down the hill in towards Hislops. By the time he turns into Hislops, the others are only just appearing over Hilltop, with Michael Eastwell still second, Luke Cooper third, Matt Rangarino fourth, Jamie Thorburn fifth, Jay Foster dropping back again now in sixth, and Nico Gruber in seventh. Ahead of Jack Wolfenden, Rory Smith and Sebastian Jobs. Still the same order around the rest of the top 10. Okay, here we go for the iconic Oulton Park Bridge. Good to see so many spectators here enjoying the summer weather, enjoying the racing as well at Oulton Park. Always a well supported circuit at Oulton Park. All of its race meetings produce a decent crowd. And nice to see them all here enjoying the spectacular vantage points around the 2.3 mile international layout here at Oulton Park. Right, Joe Foster now having to defend from Nico Gruber. Nico Gruber with the wide line into Lodge, he was hoping would convert into the tight line out, but it's not quite enough to get alongside Joe Foster. Lead gap officially 7.2 seconds. Second place gap did come down though by a couple of tenths that time, so Luke Cooper is starting to reel in Michael Eastwell again, so there is chance for a bit of chopping and changing in the podium positions yet. Not going to catch Niall Murray, but they could still be able to change around for second place. Luke Cooper third, Matt Rangarino fourth, and Jamie Thorburn fifth, and the quickest of those three was Thorburn in fifth, who actually just set the fastest final sector that anyone has set all race long. So Jamie Thorburn is starting to come on strong as the race goes on. Then you've got these two, Foster and Gruber, fighting over sixth position. There's the three cars in front of them really that are getting a little bit closer together, although Jack Wolfenden is catching these two as well, so this will become another three-way fight over the remaining couple of laps. Probably time for one more lap after this one, so getting towards now the closing stages of the race. There is Niall Murray once again over Hilltop, back down in beautiful isolation in towards Hislops. Then this second place gap now, let's see, is that still 1.1 seconds? Hard to tell. Matt Rangarino was certainly latched back onto the tail of Luke Cooper. He was nearly 6 tenths back at the start of the lap. He's now only a car length or so behind the Silverstone race winner. These two both with one win apiece so far this season. Likely to add to that win tally in this race, though we hope maybe they can do something about it in race number 2 later on. They only get those 2 opportunities to take a race victory here at Oulton Park. Of course, if Luke Cooper has to start defending from Matt Rangarino behind, then that will stop his charge onto the tail of Michael Eastwell, which is good news for Michael, bad news for Luke's prospects of taking second place. I do think he's continuing to close in there. We'll look at the gaps as they come through this time to start what will not quite be the final lap, I don't think. I think we just have time for 2 more. We'll have to wait and see how generous they are with the time here as far as when they throw the checkered flag out. So second to third comes down by nearly 3 tenths. Third to fourth, though, came down by 4 tenths. So yeah, they're definitely getting closer and closer together. And another mistake made there by Luke Cooper. He ran wide coming out of Oldhall corner. Matt Rangarino again gets to the outside line down into Cascades, but you can't do anything there. He's hoping that Luke Cooper runs a bit wide on the exit of the corner in the Swift, but no, he doesn't, makes no such mistake. And now you can see Michael Eastwell getting away again, so it's all about the fight for third as they run down the Lakeside Straight. Luke Cooper holds the middle ground on the way into the corner. Matt Rangarino takes the wide line on the way in, tries to carry as much speed towards the Shell hairpin, but again, because it's such a steeply cambered corner, it's quite difficult to overtake because you can carry a lot of speed into the turn. Even if you defend the inside line, you won't run wide on the exit because the camber is there to catch you. So it adds to the challenge of overtaking, but don't be fooled into thinking that it makes boring racing, because it's very close, and if you can make an overtake stick, then you know you've really achieved something, because it is not an easy achievement. So down towards the Hislop chicane they come again. Matt Rangarino thinking about that outside line, but just not really able to get himself fully alongside. They can run both inch perfect out of there. Niall Murray 8 seconds clear of Michael Eastwell in second, who now continues to secure that second position. There is Eastwell, and here side by side in towards Druids for third place, and again it's the outside line for Matt Rangarino, and he's only being shown the outside line. He's not once been given the opportunity to get on the inside anywhere, and he's not going to get that opportunity down to Lodge either, because Luke Cooper moves over to the inside to defend. Rangarino goes to the outside, and he's just getting increasingly frustrated. What about the exit speeds? Nope, still not enough to get up the inside, I don't think, although he's going to try it. Matt Rangarino moving over to the right-hand side of the road now. Has Luke Cooper left the door open? I think he might have done. And Matt Rangarino is finally, on the start of the final lap, going to work his way into the podium positions, and that was a marvellous move. That's exactly what I said. That's been the best part of 10 minutes in the making, that overtake. And when it happens, it feels so satisfying as a driver, because you know that you've had to apply every bit of your racecraft to make the move stick. And Matt Rangarino, after all those laps of trying, finally gets the podium position away from Luke Cooper. Now he's got to hang on to it though for another 3/4 of a lap, because we are on the final lap of the race, and Luke Cooper will be kicking himself for not moving over that little bit earlier to defend the position into Old Hall Corner, and he'll be determined to get the position back. But of course he's also now got the pressure being applied by the Scotsman Jamie Thorburn behind. So Jamie Thorburn in 5th position at the moment. Best results so far this year, just having a scan through, I think I'm right in saying it came at Knock Hill, where he had a pair of 4th place finishes, so he didn't quite beat his best finish of the year, but a solid top 5 finish from Matt Rangarino, and he could match it if he can get 4th place away from Luke Cooper. There's no one though for Niall Murray to overtake, because he has checked out the start of the final lap. He was 7.7 seconds ahead of the rest of the field. It's been an utterly dominant performance. Having said pre-race that he's not really been winning these races by a huge margin, he then immediately goes and proves me wrong by romping away to, well, seemingly another victory here at Oulton Park. This will be his 10th win of the season, and Niall Murray makes his way out of Lodge Corner. He will see the checkered flag, and he will further extend his championship lead in utterly dominant fashion here at Oulton Park. The fight for 4th place is going to run right down to the line, but I don't think we'll see a last-minute change. So Michael Eastwell comes home in 2nd place. Matt Rangarino gets 3rd place away from Luke Cooper on the last lap, and a great dice that was as well. Cooper 4th, Thorburn 5th, Joey Foster 6th from Nico Gruber and Jack Wolfenden. And then this battle that we didn't really get to pick up on as the race went on. Rory Smith in 9th, Sebastian Job 10th, and Jonathan Brown 11th. And there is Luke Williams, who, it's a miracle, quite frankly, that he even got to the end of the race. But he was running lap times at the end of the race that would have put him in the top 3 or 4, so good stuff from Luke Williams. These cars are built pretty strong, aren't they, to survive that sort of contact and still go that quickly. It is Niall Murray, though, who will take the race victory, and as I said, he is now moving into an almost insurmountable championship lead, but it's now all going to be about the fighting behind, I think, for 2nd place in the points, and that's all getting quite interesting as we move now into the final third of the season. One more race to go, though, of course, for the Avon Tyres National Formula Ford 1600 Championship here at Oulton Park. That will be coming up a little bit later on this afternoon, about 3:30. And we'll see whether Niall Murray can do the double and take another race victory, or whether maybe the likes of Michael Eastwell or Matt Rangarino. Matt Rangarino is going to be interesting to watch in that race, because he's proved that you can overtake around here. Yes, it's difficult. No, it's not quite the side-by-side, 3 abreast, breathless racing we've seen elsewhere, but the racing that you get here at Oulton Park brings about its own set of tactics. It's really very tactical, almost psychological racing. You're just trying to force that mistake out of the driver in front of you, and if you can make it stick, well, what a feeling that is. Niall Murray, though, to the applause of the spectators lining the Oulton Park circuit, is making his way back down to the garage. Michael Eastwell, well, it's another 2nd place finish. Now, he's had he's only had the 2 2nd place finishes. He's had loads of podiums, but they've usually been 3rd places, but he has been starting to get into the 2nd stop of the podium a bit more lately, and there is confirmation of that result then. Niall Murray from Michael Eastwell by a very un-Formula Ford like 8.1 seconds, with Matt Rangarino in 3rd, getting past Luke Cooper on the start of the final lap. Luke is 4th, Jamie Thorburn is 5th, Joey Foster comes home 6th ahead of Nico Gruber, Jack Wolfenden, Rory Smith and Sebastian Job, who rounds out the top 10. Jonathan Brown was 11th, 12th place was Luke Williams after that contact earlier on with Carter Williams. Thomas Capezzone is 13th ahead of Vincent J, Simon Fleet, George McDonald, and our only retirement was Carter Williams after that spectacular contact that he had down at the Hislop chicane. So the drivers then start to work their way back down towards the pit lane, where they will be greeted by Bryn Lucas in just a few moments' time. Niall Murray's already there. He was so far ahead of everybody else that he gets to the paddock and gets to Parc Fermé significantly earlier than anybody else. But Niall Murray, not known for being the most overstated of characters. He'll celebrate this in his own way, I'm sure, but there's no fist pumping or jumping out of the car with elation. I'm sure if he can win the championship at the end of the season, though, we might see a little bit more emotion from the Irishman. Niall Murray, very likeable driver and very popular amongst the rest of the paddock. If only he'd stop winning races, the rest of the drivers are thinking. Walks over to Michael Eastwell, gives him a shake of the hand, but he didn't really see much of Michael Eastwell in that race. In fact, he didn't see much of anybody. I'm sure, though, Bryn, that he's about to tell you it wasn't quite as easy as it looked.
Do you know what, Andy? I think we'll find out that he doesn't say that, actually. Niall, Andy, the commentator, was just saying that you'll probably tell us that it wasn't as easy as it looked, but you were some 8.5, 9 seconds ahead at the end.
Yeah, to be honest, I was just going for a lap record there. I don't think the track was in as good a condition as it was in qualifying. But yeah, just kept banging in the times, and no, I'm really delighted again. Just once again, a massive thanks to the team, and we had quite a tough day yesterday. Problem with one of our dampers in the back, so I had to drive across the country and get them repaired, and only fit them last night, so we didn't actually know whether it was going to work in qualifying. So thankfully it was fixed.
Absolutely. That's 4 wins on a bounce now, 6 in 7. So this is a very good habit, one we've seen you do before. And is the championship sewn up? Have you got it yet?
No, it's never sewn up, but I'm never focusing on the championship. I'm just focusing on each race at a time. I just want to get as many race wins as I can. I'd like to pick up a couple of lap records this year as well. I know it's obviously Formula 4 has gone around 50 years, so lap records are fairly important as well. So yeah, I'll be chasing that. It's a 47.3 I think here, so yeah, I'll be chasing that later on.
It was a fantastic race, and looking back behind them, there were a lot of battles behind you, and actually that played into your hands somewhat, because while everyone was defending, you could just pull away.
Yeah, well, the plan is always to just do a really quick first lap to break the toe, and once I could do that, I could see Luke was too far behind to pick up a toe from me, and he started battling then with Michael and Matt and all the rest. So yeah, I just put the head down then and just started banging in the quick times.
It was a brilliant win again.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Well on there to Niall Murray, our race winner. Now I've got our second place driver here as well, so Michael Eastwell. This was a tricky one for you, because as always, Niall just seems to get the hammer down, and then you're left trying to chase on, but you had a fair bit of defending to do. But near the end, you actually had a bit of a window.
Yeah, towards the end of the race, I saw the guys starting to battle behind and made the most of it, really. But Niall's just too far gone, you know. By the time we got to the front, or the front, I say second, he was just gone. So no, I think that's the best that we could do with that race. So yeah, I'm pleased.
But it is important when you've got people just directly behind you having a battle that you're a part of, to suddenly get a little bit of a gap, a little bit of air between, and then you can focus on yourself while they're having their little fight.
Yeah, I mean, it's so difficult to get a gap in these cars, which is a credit to Niall. I mean, he is sort of in a league of his own at the moment. And I thought I did a pretty good lap in quali, and he's still got 3 tenths on us. You know, so it's a little bit frustrating, but you know, I think really the fight is for second in the championship now. So yeah, another second place. That's good points for today.
Yeah, but when you consider you started third on the grid, and Niall was always going to get the jump on everyone because he had clean air, that was a pretty decent finish for you.
Yeah, I think so. I think all of us can be pretty happy with that. So yeah, just hopefully have another reasonable race in the second one. So thank you very much. And finally, I just want to say a massive thanks to the Kevin Mills Racing team. As always, fantastic car, and yeah, loving it this year. A great bunch of guys. Thank you very much.
Michael, well done.
Thank you. Cheers.
There you go. So over to Andy then for a few highlights of what was a pretty impressive race. Andy.
Yeah, impressive is definitely the word. It was a brilliant start by Niall Murray, and really that was the last they saw of him, because the fighting behind in the early stages was holding everybody else up. Michael Eastwell defending busily from Jamie Thorburn, and Luke Williams, who was a star of the show early on, taking to the grass there around the outside of Matt Round-Garrido. It was all to go wrong though for Luke Williams a bit later on, as he was dicing with the American driver Carter Williams. They made contact down into his lops. Remarkably, Luke was able to continue, but Carter pulled into the pit lane to retire. A bit of a mistake for Michael Eastwell, almost allowed Luke Cooper through, but that actually backed up Jamie Thorburn, allowing Matt Round-Garrido to come round the outside, whilst a wheel-locking Luke Cooper was frustratedly stuck behind Michael Eastwell. Luke then spent the rest of the race defending like his life depended on it to try and keep Matt Round-Garrido behind. The pair ran side by side on a number of occasions, but Matt just couldn't find a way through and looked destined to miss out on the podium. However, towards the end of the race, he would be able to find a way alongside properly. Joe Foster briefly made himself a factor in the top 5 fight, but then later on dropped back into the clutches of the Austrian driver Nico Gruber. The battling was very close all the way throughout the field, but overtaking proving to be exceptionally difficult. A couple of mistakes from Luke Cooper almost opened the door for Matt Rangarino to find a way through, until eventually at the start of the final lap he did manage to get to the inside and take the podium place away, and a really hard fought race it was for Matt Rangarino as well. Niall Murray though took the win, and it is another race win to add to the collection, and it extends his championship lead. Hello everybody and welcome back to Oulton Park for our first race of the day for the Miltech Sport VW Racing Cup. This is the second time in the season that these cars have been on the TCR UK package. It's the first time though that we've been able to live stream them for you. Very much looking forward to this little one make tin top series. The cars will look very familiar though to fans of the German hot hatches, a mix of Golfs and Scirocco's on the grid, and also a couple of Audi TTs too. So Simon Walton in one of the Audis is on pole position alongside Tom Walker's Scirocco. Then it is the other Audi TT of Owen Walton with Martin Depper, former British touring car racer, on row number 2. Jamie Bond and Matthew Wilson are next, ahead of Paul Taylor and Tom Witts. Then on the 5th row of the grid, we've got Toby Davis and Mark Wakefield. Josh Coggan and Rory Clark, former BMW Compact Cup racer, on the 6th row, ahead of Ethan Hamilton, Russell Joyce, Tony Prendergast and Matthew Evans, with Darren Lewis, Mark Steele and Simon Tomlinson at the tail end of the field. So the field getting ready to go racing for 20 minutes of action here in the VW Racing Cup. Away we go, and it's not a good start made by Paul to Simon Walton. He's going to lose the lead on the run down towards turn number 1. He's swamped by the whole field, in fact. Here comes Martin Depper in the green Scirocco, and he goes from 4th on the grid to lead through turn number 1. So it's all really changed in the early stages here, and we're going to have a real joy now watching the Audis trying to fight their way back through. Simon Walton, who had that pole position, he dropped way down the order. In fact, there might even be a problem with the car. So it's Depper that leads the way. Into 2nd place looks like it is Tom Walker, and then 3rd place I think is Owen Walton. I think that's the first of the Audis, but we're side by side for the race lead. Look as Tom Walker comes up the inside of the diesel Scirocco of Martin Depper and takes the lead away. So there we go, 3 corners, and we've practically had 3 different leaders already, but it's Tom Walker that leads the way. Depper 2nd, Owen Walton in 3rd, Jamie Bond I think that is, who's up into 4th position from 5th on the grid, as they work their way now through the right-hander at the Shell hairpin down towards the Britain chicane for the first time. It looks as though Tom Walker's just starting to make a bit of a break now. Side by side action behind there, that could lead to some contact. That's Toby Davis looking to the inside, sideways car there. That's Russell Joyce getting out of shape behind. It's all kicking off, cars on the grass up at Britain's. A big field of tin top racers, and you know that you're going to get lots of action, particularly in the early stages. So down in towards the Hislop chicane, we start to see now some of the variety on the grid. We've got the Golfs, we've got the Polo there of Russell Joyce, the Scirocco's of course, both petrol and diesel examples out on the grid, and the Audis. Now why, you may ask, are Audi TTs allowed to compete in the Volkswagen Racing Cup? Surely the clue is in the name. Well, of course, Audi is part of the VAG group these days, and so Audis and even Seats would technically be eligible to race in the series, and so that's why we've got those 2 Audi TTs out there. They look splendid. They were hit by a few reliability issues in the early stages of their life, but now in their 2nd full season, they are really tough to beat. You can see Owen Walton there, car 91 in 3rd place, the highest placed of those 2 now though, after his father Simon really did not get off the line all that well. So Jamie Bond working his way out of Lodge Corner there, under pressure now from Russell Joyce. This is for 4th position as they head across the start finish line, while 2nd place is getting rather tasty as well, with Owen Walton attacking Martin Depper in the DW Racing car. That is of course the car that previously was raced by TCR UK racer Darrell Wilson, who unfortunately is not with us this weekend, but he is here assisting with the running of this car with ZX Mini Challenge and British touring car racer Martin Depper at the wheel. Then we've got Russell Joyce now ahead of Jamie Bond, so he did manage to make that one stick. So Russell Joyce has got himself up an extra position. For some reason Russell's not showing on the time sheet. We're going to that in a moment or 2. Back through Island Bend they go, in towards the right-hander at the Shell Heaven. Now, it's not Russell Joyce, it's Tom Witts in car number 14, beg your pardon. That is the car that Russell Joyce previously has raced though, the VW Polo, and that's a good car. It's very quick when it works, but has had a few mechanical issues over the first year or so of his life. But Tom Witts there in the 4th position ahead of Jamie Bond, and look at that, already closing in on the cars in front as well. So as they work their way over Hilltop for the 2nd time, the lead gap may be going out between Walker and Depper, but Depper is coming under all sorts of pressure now from Owen Walton and Tom Witts behind him, with Jamie Bond not that far behind either, in 5th position. There is Jamie Bond. Then you've got the 31 car, that is Wilson coming through. Number 31, Matthew Wilson, there we go, who's in 6th position. Then Mark Wakefield in 7th as well. Mark Wakefield, former mini racer, who has moved over into the similar but slightly different VW Cup. A bit more variety out there with the different makes of VW Audi Group cars. They're all running, of course, the same set of regulations, which makes the racing very close indeed. Down towards Lodge they come again before the end of the second lap. Things just starting to settle down slightly. Tom Walker had a 1 second lead over Martin Depper at the end of the previous lap, but Depper, as you can see, is really having to defend now from Owen Walton, who looks to the outside line down towards Old Hall Corner. Going to go right around the outside. This is a really brave move to make, but he does it. Fantastic stuff from Owen Walton. He runs a bit wide onto the grass. Of course, the diesel Scirocco has a bit more torque, a bit more acceleration out of the corners, but maybe lacking in top speed. And Owen Walton took advantage of that to drive around the outside of Martin Depper, going down towards turn number 1. So through he goes. Depper, though, with that torque, gets the exit from Cascade, nearly gets back up the inside down the Lakeside Straight. It's not quite going to work out for him, though. So Owen Walton gets his way into 2nd position. Now the championship is being led by a man that we haven't really mentioned yet, Chris Paniotto, who is, I believe, a non-starter possibly. He was listed in the entry, but yeah, the championship leader's not here, so that essentially means that Jamie Bond takes over the championship lead from Toby Davis by 20 points. Well, Jamie Bond is running in 5th, but Toby Davis is in 8th position, so that's another battle to watch out for, to see whether Toby can get onto terms with his big championship rival. Chris Paniotto not here this weekend, they have the real chance to, Jamie Bond is only 8 points behind him anyway, so he almost certainly will move on to the championship lead after this race. Tom Witts there, locking up as he's in behind Martin Depper, dropping down into the Hislop chicane, headlights ablaze there for the Joyce design car of Tom Witts. Power Max Racing support as well, that team. That's a very well-known team these days in British motorsport. Having success with the VW Cup this weekend with Tom Witts on the fringes of the podium. Tom Walker's lead gap went out by 7/10 that time around, so he set the fastest lap of the race, 1:53.599, and he's now 1.7 clear on Martin, well now Owen Walton in 2nd place, and I'll be interested to see whether Owen Walton is able to bridge that gap. I'd say that at the moment that's exactly what he's doing. He's certainly getting away from Martin Depper, who's got his hands rather full of Tom Witts behind. But let me remind you, Tom started this race down in 8th place on the grid, and he's already running 4th. We've only done 6 minutes of racing. Across the line we go. Fastest lap set by Owen Walton that time around in 2nd position, so he was only fractionally quicker than Tom Walker, but of course he had some overtaking to do at the start of the lap as well, so Owen Walton should, in theory, be able to go even quicker this time around in fully clean air. There's confirmation of your order then. Walker from Walton, from Depper, from Witts, from Bond and Wilson. Where is the other Walton? Where is Simon Walton? He's only 10th at the moment after his not exactly brilliant start off the line. Here comes Tom Witts from the inside of Depper towards Island Bend. He can't really overtake there. Oh, that's a shame. We've got Matthew Evans off in car number 7, the Scirocco up at Old Hall Corner. I don't think there's any damage though, so he should be able to rejoin as this fight for 3rd place continues. And Tom Witts again looking to the inside of Martin Depper on the exit of the Shell hairpin. Diesel car pulls out of the corner well enough to hang on. It's fascinating watching this diesel Scirocco, the only one on the grid I believe, and the way that it has different strengths and weaknesses. Of course it's a bit heavier than some of the other cars, doesn't necessarily come through the corners as quickly, but then has great acceleration thanks to the torque of the diesel. There's what happened to Matthew Evans, a harmless spin at Old Hall Corner, didn't quite make barriers, so no real damage done, and he'll be able to rejoin, albeit at the back of the field. So leaders making their way back through the Hislops and Nickelbrook complex. I can tell you from 2nd place, Owen Walton just did the fastest first sector of anybody, so he's continuing to close in on Tom Walker, but then Tom retaliates with the fastest middle sector of anybody, so they're trading sector times, these two at the front. The gap possibly is just starting to creep down ever so slightly. The gap then going up between 2nd and 3rd. It's now a 3-way fight for 3rd place because Jamie Bond has closed in on Martin Depper and Tom Witts. Tom Witts will be keen to get on with this now. Sensed half an opportunity maybe to get on the inside into Lodge Corner, but decided the discretion was the better part of valour. Didn't want to take too much of a risk. Oh no! He gets into the back of Martin Depper though and crunch heavily into the tyre wall, and that is not the way we wanted that race to end. Martin Depper out of the race undoubtedly. I don't believe there was any intention on the part of Tom Witts there. He was trying to get that switchback manoeuvre that we talked so often about at Lodge Corner, where you get in on the wide line and then you try and cut back to the late apex, get up the inside down the pit straight, but he just didn't quite time it right. Well, Martin Depper, who is usually a very, very cheery chap, but I don't think that he's best pleased after that one, because he's thinking about the repair bill there, and he's thinking about the fact that that car's not going to be out probably for race 2 now, and well, what a shame it had to end like this. Here you can see Depper goes in on the tight line, so Tom Witts goes in wide, cuts back tight, but Depper was trying to get back over, I think, to try and defend, and they just met in the middle. And it's a shame that that relatively small amount of contact had such damaging results there for Martin Depper, who ends up in the tyre wall and out of the race. Thankfully, though, he's out of the car. He's absolutely okay. The tyre wall doesn't seem too badly damaged either, so we may require a safety car, but almost certainly won't require a red flag there, so that's good news. Yeah, the car's going to need a tow. They're going to have to possibly get the digger out after the race to get the tyre wall sorted. That does mean that Tom Witts is now into third place, so I'm fairly sure there'll be some sort of conversation after the race after that one. More contact here maybe between Toby Davis and Mark Wakefield. He's trying to find a way past Mark Wakefield, is Toby, into 6th position. Toby Davis 3rd in the championship going into this race, but not really gelling with Oulton Park this weekend. As we go safety car now, this makes things interesting. Remember, I've been saying the top two have been running near identical lap times. Owen Walton did take the fastest lap last time around, but he was only a 100th quicker than Tom Walker. Well, now that 1.7 second gap is going to come down to absolutely nothing. So the lead gap is going to come right down with just less than half the race still to go. The ambulance is there just to take Martin Depper off for precautionary checks. We saw him get out of the car and chatting away with the marshals, but anytime you have a head-on impact with the wall like that, you always get checked over in the medical centre. The most efficient way of getting you there is via the ambulance, so no desperate need to panic. That's just the standard procedure after an incident like that has occurred out on the circuit. So the order then: Tom Walker leads the way, Owen Walter is in 2nd position, Tom Witts is 3rd, Jamie Bond is 4th, Matthew Wilson's 5th, ahead of Mark Wakefield 6th, 7th place Toby Davis, 8th place for Paul Taylor, 9th is Simon Walton, and 10th place for former BMW racer Rory Clark. There's Martin Depper awaiting his lift back to the medical centre. And the DW Racing car, which usually looks resplendent in its DW Racing green, now looking a little bit more second-hand, it has to be said. So the Honda Civic Type R safety car collects the field together, and we now have a brief pause as everyone catches their breath after what's been a fairly breathless start to the race, it must be said. This is the 6th meeting of the season for this championship. They actually started their campaign on the TCR UK package back at Silverstone. Then they went to Rockingham, Snetterton, Brands Hatch, and their most recent round at Spa-Francorchamps over in Belgium. From here at Oulton Park, they go to Croft and Donington Park, which are both on the TCR package again towards the end of the year. So they've all been really enjoying being on this package of racing, and they're putting on a real show for us today. So I believe we can have another look at what happened to Martin Depper there, and as I said, it was all really rather unfortunate. So he defends the inside line, and Russell Joyce just tries to time it right, getting up the inside. It looks like he drives into him maliciously, but I'm absolutely convinced that's not the case. It was just one of those things where they met in the middle. Tom Witts was pulling to the outside, Depper was pulling to the inside, and unfortunately the tiniest bit of contact. Look at the damage done to the car. Martin Depper, though, he's been there before. He's had his fair share of shunts in the past as Martin, because he's been racing for an awfully long time, very experienced driver, and he really enjoys his racing as well. And I believe that listening to his onboard radio during the races can be quite entertaining, because he really does get stuck in, and when things are going well, he really enjoys himself, and when things aren't going so well, it's fair to say things haven't gone too well today. Unfortunately, he doesn't get quite the same high out of it, but we'll wait to see. Hopefully the car can be repaired for race 2, although it's going to be a bit of an ask, it has to be said. There's Ethan Hamilton, who has progressed from Clio Juniors earlier on in the season, working his way through behind the safety car. Ethan Hamilton currently running in 12th position, just behind Russell Joyce. So Russell Joyce is in the race, but he's one of 2 Joyce Engineering liveried cars. He, I believe, is in the Golf, whereas the Polo is in the hands of Tom Witts. Martin Depper continues to survey the damage, though, down at Lodge Corner. Rare to see a car off in the tyre wall there, but it can happen if you just make a little bit of contact coming out of the corner. And yeah, that's the front splitter pulled off. The bonnet flew off as well, of course, and basically all of the front bodywork came off the car with that impact. Martin now gets gestured over. They're just going to take him for a ride to the medical centre, give him a check out, but as you can see, he looks perfectly okay. Bit sore maybe, bruised ego, certainly a bruised wallet, but other than that, could have been a lot worse. It's good to see Martin getting into the back of the ambulance, as jovial as ever now, it seems. Now he's had a moment of reflection, and the field work their way through onto what will be at least one more lap behind the safety car. We could potentially have another though, because it's not going to try and repair the barrier as well, and this is a shame, because Yeah, they're going to red flag it. There we go. I thought I saw a flash of red. So yes, so the session is being stopped now. Does that mean that this is the end of the race, or are they going to try and get a restart? As I said, it's a pretty tight schedule with the barrier damage that's been done down there at Lodge Corner, and the fact that we do have lots more races coming up today. They need to get that barrier fixed and back as safe as it can be, and they can't just leave it there like that for the rest of the race. So they've taken the decision, rather than run around behind the safety car all race long, they're going to red flag it, and I believe the checkered flag has been shown as well. So I think that is the race over, and that's a shame because that was building up to quite a nice climax there. I was looking forward to that safety car restart, but they've got another race coming up later on today which will be streamed live, and that will be coming up at about 5:30, so we'll get to do it all over again, and hopefully we'll get to go the full 20 minutes without the need for an early stoppage. But there we sit, the red flags are out, and our first Miltech Sport VW Racing Cup race of the day unfortunately comes to a premature end as a result of contact between Tom Witts and Martin Depper, putting the latter into the barriers and causing significant tyre damage, tyre wall damage and barrier repair work to be done. Well, that's a shame. The big crowd here on hand at Oulton Park would have loved to have seen that grandstand finish, but hopefully we'll be treated to it later on instead, and it is therefore a victory for Tom Walker. Now, is that Tom Walker's first win of the year? Let me just have a scan through. He scored 40 points for a race victory. Yeah, he's not had a win all year, so that is Tom Walker's first victory of the season. Second place for Owen Walton. He's had podiums so far this year. Yes, in fact, he had a win back at the start of the season at Silverstone, did Owen Walton, but hasn't quite been able to recreate those highs ever since. As for Tom Witts in third position, he, I think, has had he's had a second place before, so not quite his best finish of the year, but some good championship points nonetheless. So Tom Walker wins from Owen Walton in second and Tom Witts third. Jamie Bond fourth, Matthew Wilson fifth, then Mark Wakefield in sixth. Toby Davis is seventh, Paul Taylor is eighth, Simon Walton is in ninth, and Rory Clark comes home in 10th place. Outside the top 10, we've got Russell Joyce in 11th, Ethan Hamilton 12th, Darren Lewis 13th, former MX-5 racer, and Tony Brendergast 14th. Josh Coggan is 15th, 16th for Simon Tomlinson, 17th Matthew Evans, 18th Mark Steele, and Martin Depper, unfortunately our only retirement, but a fairly significant one because his off into the tyre barriers brought about the premature end of our first Miltech Sport VW Racing Cup race of the day. It's a real shame, as I said, that had to end that way. So the summer sunshine, though, continues to beam down here at Oulton Park ahead of a busy afternoon of racing. We've got another stream coming up later on, of course, which will have both of our TCR UK races. We'll also have a pair of Nankang Tyres BMW Compact Cup races, 2 more MX-5 Super Cup races, and a race apiece for the Formula Ford 1600s and the VW Racing Cup that we've just seen out on circuit. So the crowd, I'm sure, will stick around for the rest of the day to enjoy their day of racing here at Oulton Park. Martin Depper's car, though, unfortunately may not be taking much part in what's going to happen later on today. I fear that might be the last we see of that car today. So as Martin Depper's car is pulled into Parc Fermé, we will look back at some of the highlights of a dramatic opening race of the day for the VWs. It was a terrible start for Simon Walton from pole position. He dropped down to 10th place off the line, whilst Martin Depper initially led, only for Tom Walker to get through halfway around the first lap. Behind it was very, very close indeed, but at the front of the field, the lead gap started to come down once Owen Walton got through into second place with a marvellous move around the outside at Old Hall Corner to get past Depper into second. He set off after the race leader, whilst Martin Depper was then forced to try and defend from the very racy VW Polo of Tom Witts behind him. Tom had a few little goes at finding a way through, almost making contact with the back of the DW Racing car into his lops. Before, at mid-race distance, contact was made, the tiniest amount of contact at Lodge Corner, sending Martin Depper off into the tyre wall, out of the race, and damaging the tyre barriers to boot. The racing continued for a lap or so, but eventually the move was taken to red flag the race in order for the marshals and circuit workers to be able to get the barrier repairs done. So the red flags came out. Tom Walker was the race winner for the first time in 2018. And, well, the cars haven't quite made it back into Parc Fermé yet, which is why we've got a bit of a delay being able to hear from our top 3 finishers. But we will momentarily be able to get them in. I think they're just waiting for the course car to make its way in first and just making the final decision on whether or not they're going to restart the race. But we had heard that that was going to be a checkered flag. And we'll let you know as and when we get any further updates. There's Depper's car, which, as I said, formerly raced by TCR racer Darrell Wilson, who is here this weekend. He's missing the TCR races because they're just trying to get to the bottom of a few issues they've had with the car, but he'll be back hopefully for Croft next time out. But this car, unfortunately, we might not be seeing again this weekend, I'm afraid. But they're fairly strong cars though, and whilst from the outside it doesn't look that great, I'll be hoping that the engine hasn't taken too much of a whack. The radiator might need replacing, but other than that, it mainly looks like it's just superficial. So I don't know, there's a chance the DW Racing squad are a professional team. They know how to get the cars fixed and ready to go racing again later on. Hopefully we'll be able to see the car back out on circuit in the second race. As I say, they've got until about 5:30 to get the car fixed, so there is a chance we could see it back out, but a slim one maybe. So the drivers now, of course, all sat baking hot inside their cars as they try and keep some airflow going. Of course, whilst you're in the race and the adrenaline's flowing, you don't necessarily notice the heat quite as much as you do now when you're sat at a standstill and nothing's happening and you're just waiting to see where you're going. We're waiting to see whether we're going to restart this race. The timing screen has now come up with 20 minutes shown. Now, if we do get a restart, it won't be over a full 20 minutes, but that is sometimes a sign that they intend to restart the race. So this is why the cars haven't been, they're being sent onto the grid. So I think we are going to get some sort of a restart, aren't we here? We hadn't quite reached 2/3 race distance, I don't think, when the red flag came out. So yeah, it looks like we're going to get a restart. So there we go. So the race is not over. So don't go anywhere. We're going to get some more racing. It will be over a shortened distance, one would imagine, but we are going to get the race resumed, which is good news. And it means that we were due to go into a lunch break next anyway, so we've got a bit of time to play with. Hang on. No, now they're sending Owen Walton into... No, now they're sending him into Parc Fermé. So I think a decision was taken to restart the race, and now they've finally made the decision not to restart the race. Only after they sent Tom Walker back onto pole position, but they'll give him a push back, and the cars are now making their way back in towards Parc Fermé. So there's a bit of a scrum to get in there, but they're all desperate to come and speak to Bryn Lucas, that's what it is, and they're all eager to get in there as quickly as possible. Tom Walker, though, the race winner, frustratingly, will be the last car in because he's being pushed back by the marshals now, having briefly been ushered onto pole position, looking as though we were going to get a race restart, but that's not the case, and unfortunately we'll have to wait until their second race later on to see the Miltech Sport VW Racing Cup cars back out on track in action. So back in they go, and hopefully we will be able to catch up with our top three finishers. We might have to do it in a slightly different order rather than sit around waiting for Tom Walker to make his way in, although he's now about to drive in at the back of the queue, so it shouldn't take too long. And yep, he will bring the Scirocco in just in front of the number 5 car of Tony Prendergast, so we're not quite the last car in. So he is now on his way down to Bryn, who I believe is standing ready and waiting to chat with our podium finishers from a curtailed but certainly dramatic VW Racing Cup race. It was that bad start from Owen Walton, really, which opened the door for a few others to get up there and have their moment in the spotlight, although it's, Simon Walton, it's worth saying though that Simon Walton was only 12 1/1000ths quicker than Tom Walker in qualifying, so it must be expected, I suppose, that it was Tom who got up there and led and took the race win in the end. Owen Walton second and Tom Witt's third provisionally, let's put it that way. Right then, the drivers are now getting out of their cars. Hugs all around there, the Maximum Motorsport group team going out of that one fairly well. There is Simon Walton wandering over to have a chat, lamenting the not brilliant start. He has a word with his son Owen there, but I think we can now head over to Bryn down in Parc Fermé.
Yeah, thanks very much. Here we are getting the race winner. It was a race win, but probably in a way that you wouldn't have taken at the top, but maybe you would have done, I don't know.
No, I preferred to do it the normal way, not under a red flag, but I managed to pull away, kept the gap, and maintained the gap, and suddenly to see the red flag, and then knowing that you might actually have to restart again after all the effort I put in, it was quite disappointing, but a win's a win.
There was some confusion at the end because it was a red flag, it looked like the end, and there was maybe a restart there. What was going on in the car?
Too hot. That's basically it. It was just, I didn't know what was happening. I don't think anybody else did, so there wasn't much happening apart from cooking.
Anything nice going on in there?
No. Nothing. Can't think of anything, to be fair.
Fair enough. So it was a race that you really kind of controlled. Once you got there, you controlled it, and it was fairly simple, or it looked fairly simple from the outside. It's never as easy, though, is it?
It wasn't fully simple. I was a bit slow off the start, and I knew Depp would be quick off the start as well. So I let him go and hopefully pick him off later on in the race, but it came a bit sooner than I thought. So once I got past him, I just drove off. That was it. We managed to control it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, nice race win, and these cars are pretty good out there. There's always a lot of excitement from start to finish.
Yeah, it's exciting to look at and it's exciting to drive. So,
Absolutely fantastic. Well done.
thank you.
There we go. So there's our race winner. Let's bring in our second place. Now, this was it was an interesting race from start to finish. And we'll come to the third place in just a bit. But before we do, how was it for you inside? Because it looked like it was one of those sort of races that you had your work cut out, but then.
Yeah, so it was a little bit difficult at the start because the car just seemed to have a lot more straight line speed than Depper and the Scirocco. So I found it difficult to get past Martin, but once I did, I just managed to manage a gap, you know, and I was in a pretty comfortable position. You know, I was a little bit behind Tom, but third place was a little bit behind me. So a bit of a race of my own, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, you know, it was nice and easy. It wasn't too difficult at all, to be honest.
That's nice, isn't it? You go and rest up for a bit.
Yeah, no, it's when I seen the safety car come out, I thought, oh no, that's going to bring all the gaps back together again. So I won't lie, I was pretty pleased to say that they ended the race there because I thought it's going to bring it back into play again. But yeah, I'm over the moon with that.
Well, Owen, well done.
Thank you.
Let's move and bring in our third place. Now, this is a interesting one because I'm looking over to my right-hand side. There's a green car over there with a bit of a smashed up front, but you finished third. Tell us from your point of view what happened there with Martin.
We were having a good race up to that point. As far as I'm concerned, I got the cutback and I was alongside his rear wheel and I had nowhere else to go. I was on the edge of the track and just come across the front of me. So, you know, in my eyes, it's one of them. It's racing.
Was it just that you got a better drive off the turn and he got a bit less of a drive and so you ended up kind of tapping him? But it's one of those things. It wasn't a big tap.
No, well, in my eyes, I got the cutback, so I was alongside his rear wheel with a good run. And it turned him across the front. It wasn't a front to rear contact. So, like I say, we'll see what people have to say about it, but, you know.
You'll take it, happily, you'll take it.
Yeah, from 8th on the grid, the team worked massively hard between qualifying to give us that pace, and the car felt mega. So, yeah, really pleased. You know, Powermax and Joyce Design have done us proud.
It was very exciting no matter what.
Yeah, it was exciting from my point of view too.
Great stuff, well done there, Tom. So there you go, our top three. It was pretty dramatic up to the end. As we heard Tom just saying there, that he thinks the move on Martin was totally fine. And I've got to say, looking at it here, it could go either way. We'll wait and see what happens over the next half hour or so. I'm sure there'll be some inquiries going on back and forth. But that's it from us for now. We'll be back very, very soon with our first TCR UK race of the day. Join us in just a bit.